I would agree with that. Okay, 1 second. Waited this long for you, Jordan Klein. You wait for me. All right, I'm set. Let's do it. Holy mother of God. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive presented by Stokastic. I'm Eric Lindquist. Why am I laughing? Because myself, Chris Spags, at Chris Spags over on X, are about to break down 14 games on the DraftKings main slate, 15 games on the FanDuel main slate. There is going to be no time for Puppet Lindquist. He's going to have to sit in the corner and be a good little naked boy with his pants down. Chris Spags, how you doing, my dude?
I'm excited to be here. The slate's chaos. The projections updated on Stokastic. So if you're waiting for those, you go check them out yourself. But it's going to be chaos. I mean, it's really it. We have so many Q tag guys, though. Coincidentally, less Q tag guys than we had on Monday. There were 60 Q tags on Monday slate at one point. Today we're at a mere 30, but they're really important Q tags. And I said it before in a couple different streams. It's like these guys were like, going into spring break, basically. It's who's going to play, who wants to play. If they are playing, they're probably playing a little bit fast and loose. It's going to be a fun NBA slate, but it is going to be a lot to keep up with if you are going to be late swapping around, as our pal Eric always loves to do.
Yeah, let's swap-a-roo. It's going to be a real freaking naughty. It's going to be a weird slate. You're going to have to roll with the punches. And of course, right after myself and Spags break down everything as best as we can on the DraftKings slate and FanDuel slate, we are going to turn it over to Matt Belman and to Greg Ehrenberg hosting the Live Before Lock show. So giddy on up, everybody. We've got on the sidebar, this looks ridiculous. Doesn't it just look ridiculous on the sidebar to have 14 games sitting there? I've never seen this before.
It's too big. That's what she said, but it's just too much on one screen. It's a lot. It's daunting. But you know what, guys? You have Eric leading the way. You have me here with you as well. We're going to hold your hands, kiss you on the head, take you through each game.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I was single, but I do miss hearing that. Anyway, we've got a first game right off the bat. San Antonio Spurs taking on the Boston Celtics. And let's just kind of get down with our bad selves. We do have money to be able to go up and get guys like Victor Wembanyama. You're going to have an unlimited amount of value. And we know he can be somebody who at 0.58% ownership can go out and make a difference in your lineups. But he's going to pale in comparison to Jokic. He's going to pale in comparison to some other spend-ups, specifically Cade Cunningham in that Chicago game after yesterday's blowout, but definitely want to try to take some shots there again. We have so many places to go. I can't imagine Wemby somebody you're looking at in like more than a lineup or two out of a 150 set.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you here. Kept these guys' rates from where they've been on the year. I was previously kind of juking things a little bit to reflect how Fox had played since coming over the Spurs, but he started to settle in close enough to where he's been at Sacramento, a little bit higher assist upside overall. For the most part, the usage is holding steady. Now Wemby, we saw the outlier day last day, kind of reclaimed some usage for himself. So I think things are getting closer to normal for these guys, but still Wemby kind of expensive. It's a slate where you have a lot of pay-up options to go to. Quite literally, every pay-up option we have on DFS slates is available today. And some of them, like Luka and LeBron, you also probably don't want to go to, but to me, Wemby under 1% owned, I think that's about right here. It's a national game, so you want to maybe target these guys because of that reason you can, but the Spurs to me just look like a team you can kind of skip over for the most part.
Yeah, De'Aaron Fox is 8,100. He's a guy who's had around 13.5 potential assists per game in his 4 games in a Spurs uniform. Been a decent allotment in terms of his usage as well. It's just really hard to land on an 8,100 De'Aaron Fox. Like other slates, like an 8-game slate, 7-game slate, I think you'd see some pretty consolidated chalk around that tag. But I'm not seeing it here today, which brings us to the Boston side of things. If we don't have a ton of interest in stuff, we can kind of gloss over it. This is one that could look very different, though, if we get Jaylen Brown ruled out. Jaylen Brown currently in the projection still. He'd be an interesting option, shooting guard, small forward himself. But what happens to Tatum, Porzingis, White, Pritchard? Kind of the same example that we had last time against Miami in a worse matchup. Not great defensively, but slower matchup. Against the Spurs, I got to think we would have some interest in something in this first game.
Yeah, if Brown is out, obviously it's going to open things up a good amount. We already have Drew Holiday out as well. Brown himself, though, if he's in, is probably my preferred play, I think, out of these group of guys. About 5% ownership for me coming in right now. He does gain usage, gets to about 31% usage gains and assist rate without Drew Holiday. But really, if Brown is in, nobody looks that great. If Brown is out, everybody looks better, in particular, Tatum, Porzingis, Derek White. And I would say probably a little bit of a trickle down to Pritchard, a little bit of a trickle down to Horford as well. But as it is right now, with these guys playing, this seems like a nice game to watch. I think for DFS, these guys are appropriately priced if we do get Jaylen Brown in. And I guess my question for you, Eric, do you think he plays? Because he was backstage with like the Eagles guys at like the Tonight Show or something. So that doesn't seem like a guy who is going to play with his right knee soreness today, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, these are just like glorified rest spots. Boston's pretty locked into getting the 2 seed at this point in time. Cleveland's going to run away with the 1, I think, when it's all said and done. Boston just needs to stay healthy, and we've seen some staggered rest days, if you will. They're almost double-digit favorites every single time they step on the court at home. And so you can have Brown sit, and you're still going to be like an implied odds, what, like 75%, 80% in a lot of these kind of spots. So like, obviously, San Antonio's a better team than the average Bear coming in there, but I definitely feel as though this is one where I think Kristaps Porzingis is probably the most interesting just because of the 2 center spots, and the usage definitely takes a tick up. 7,800, pull him away from the basket, Wemby, that is. I could see myself getting to a little bit more Porzingis here. Tatum, he becomes an interesting spend up, but like, yeah, I'm kind of with you where I think Jaylen Brown more than likely ends up sitting. And it's just kind of having a game plan in place because like Derek White and Peyton Pritchard, I think they're in play, but like they're 6,600 and 6K respectively now. On DraftKings, that's definitely not going to be a priority for me.
Yeah, I would say no matter what, you're probably not jamming a bunch of Celtics in, even if you get Brown out because of the slate. Besides the slate, you really have to hit the nuts today. Obviously, any NBA DFS slate, you have to hit the nuts, but like today, you really got to hit the nuts. So unless you're playing high stakes stuff, I think getting one Celtic here and trying to hope they're an outlier Celtic would be the move if you got Jaylen Brown out.
Yeah, let's take a look at Portfolio EV here too on your screen. Kristaps Porzingis, interesting. I brought him up. This is something that definitely happens a lot. The more that we're talking about Portfolio EV in conjunction with the DFS, you're going to see some of these unders end up grading out pretty darn well on these pieces that we're still having interest in because, well, you could see other people having an interest in betting them up to a certain place where then Portfolio EV from a market-based perspective is saying, yes, we have some unders that make some sense. So under 3-pointers, 2.5 3-pointers, I would really hope you would go over if I ended up playing him there. But if Jaylen Brown ends up in, I think you're going to be getting some nice CLV on that one for sure. To the next game we go. Charlotte, 12.5-point dogs taking on Orlando. And it's funny because like this is a 203 total. 203. It got bet down from 206 last night to 2-03. And yet I think the Orlando side has some interesting stuff to talk about. But first, Charlotte, the walking wounded. We've got Nick Smith Jr. We've got KJ Simpson pulling quite a bit of ownership here at this point in time. And Nick Smith Jr., shooting guard, small forward. I think every time we see that positionality, we always have them a little bit more optimal than what their ownership is going to be in almost all of these situations. But a 4,500 Nick Smith Jr., a 4,400 KJ Simpson, I think we'll have better value show up later. But how do you feel about them right now, Spags?
Yeah, I'm getting a good amount of Nick Smith right now, actually getting him about 2x the field in the semi-round before the show. So Nick Smith, the big thing that jumped out in court time without LaMelo, court time without Brandon Miller, also Mark Williams, 3 of the guys are missing today. There are even more, but those are the 3 key guys. It's not a big sample size, but Nick Smith has put up about a 27.7% usage rate in that court time. So like he starts to gun more because basically there's nobody else left who's going to get up shots besides Miles Bridges. So I think he's worth it through that prism. Not one of my favorite players in the league, but accounting for the matchup, the team total, who's available for the Hornets today, I would have Nick Smith at about 0.9 fantasy points per minute today. So I think he's actually a pretty strong value play. KJ Simpson a little bit less so, but without Micic there, his run at point guard is a little bit more secure overall. And he's been pretty good overall per minute, starting to round into form a little bit more. But at 0.76 fantasy points per minute on the year, I think he's a little bit closer to about a 0.85 guy when he's getting real minutes and kind of a focal point as a point guard. But I think these are okay plays. I agree with your take that there's probably better value that opens up. So going ham on these guys is probably not the move. But there's opportunity here, including Miles Bridges, that people don't seem to play enough. It's not a great total, not a great matchup, but somebody's got to shoot for the Hornets. Somebody's got to absorb some stats, and they're probably not going to lose by 50, even though it feels like they might against Orlando.
All right. In the apocalypse, which is this scenario, let's say we get Diabate out and we get a starting Yusuf Nurkic. He's 4,500, but they said he's going to be on some type of a minutes limit. Would you still click on his name in one of 20 lineups?
I think so. I think he's worth a little bit of exposure. I mean, at that point, you'd expect him, I would guess, to play probably mid 20s minutes. The faint shot of getting to 28. Maybe the minutes cap is like 30. It's one of those weird minutes caps that aren't really a cap. So I think if Diabate's out, I would take that shot a little bit. More likely, I think you probably get him and then just a pure split with Taj Gibson at center and maybe a few minutes with either guy, not playing center. But he's worth a shot. I think Thomas Bryant's a little bit more of a secure play to me, even though you're paying up for that one. But I could take the shots at Nurkic with him, likely being a guy who's going to produce a lot per minute with the skeleton crew they're going to have at Charlotte in a lot of games.
Yeah, speaking of skeleton crew, you do have a 3K Elf Payton. He played 23 minutes against Detroit in a pretty competitive spot there. They lost by 10. Didn't really do a whole hell of a lot with it, but also you don't have LaMelo Ball out there. That is going to be something that very much matters. I mean, you look at the pace. It's so hard to evaluate pace of this team. 98 possessions per 48 minutes over the course of this season. That's 24th. They're not exactly fast paced as is. They're very inefficient offensively. And now you take Ball off the floor. I don't know what to make of it there, but if something happens to Simpson whatsoever, Elf Payton at 3K is going to have free reign to do whatever he wants. I bet I still have a share or two of him in 150. But jumping over to the Orlando side, we saw a pretty consolidated chalk around Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero last time out. Price tag came up a little bit on Franz at 8,300, but the big difference is that we just have like a straight up stars and scrubs slate. We have a mid-range that is redonkulous, and we have a ton of dudes projected for 40 plus. So Wagner and Banchero in a slow-paced matchup against Charlotte, they don't look the same that they did last time out against Atlanta, but do you have any exposure to those two specifically on today's slate?
Yeah, I'm not getting a lot of these guys, I think, for the reasons you laid out pretty well there. Franz, to me, I think it looks like a good play, like a 5x and change value play to me. He's been better than Paolo Banchero this year, averaging about 0.1 fantasy points more. So I think he should be a little bit higher salary than Paolo, and I think they're kind of appropriately priced therein. But really, they're just better plays to go to. They're better value plays. They're, frankly, Bull. If you give him enough of a rate boost, then you have Booker out. He's not going to project that far off of Franz Wagner or Paolo at their projections right now. So I think Orlando's an okay team. Obviously a soft matchup going against Charlotte, but like Eric also mentioned, it's a really low pace spot. Two of the lowest pace teams in the league. Expect this one to have like about a 97 pace between the two. That's not good. So there's better games to go to here. These guys can have an outlier day for sure at low ownership, but like, do you want to give up that flexibility on game one? Like, probably not.
Yeah, it's tough. And again, I go player by player. I use dunks and threes, and I kind of like have my way of running pace metrics and trying to predict a game. It's just a really fun process to go through, and had some pretty good success just back testing some totals. I find it to be like the most difficult one for me to pick out, like Charlotte on a day-to-day basis, just because they've had so many of their key pieces out, whether it was Brandon Miller, LaMelo Ball, whomever else. And now you're running into a spot where it's like potentially just like a complete unknown of groupings besides Miles Bridges out there. But let's continue on now. We've got what, 2 games down, only 13 to go, Spags. Indy, Washington, 10-point favorites are the Indiana Pacers on a back-to-back themselves. And this is one of the major teams that we have to talk about right now on this slate. They are at the 7 p.m. Eastern time, 4 p.m. Pacific time start. They're on a back-to-back. Thomas Bryant played 32 minutes last time, and yet Thomas Bryant is giga chalk. 30% optimal, 35% ownership, 5K center. I like him more than I like the Diabates of the world, more of the, I guess, the perspective Nurkic play by any means. But Thomas Bryant at freaking 35%, a third of people's lineups, Thomas Bryant, that can't feel good, Spags.
No, it's a lot of Thomas Bryant. I mean, he did just go nuts yesterday, which will certainly increase the box score clickers out there. I have no issue going to Thomas Bryant today a good amount. Like, I think he played well against Cat. He's technically, the YouTube chat will love it. It's a revenge game against Washington, guys. So Thomas Bryant has so many revenge games at this point, it probably doesn't matter too much. But the guaranteed minutes are the main thing to me. The rates being good enough. He's been a little bit over 1 fantasy point per minute, 1.03 on the year. And you run the risk, like you give Jahlil Okafor more minutes, so they only played him in the blowout yesterday. You run the risk Obi Toppin could take some minutes, but I think Thomas Bryant's worth the ownership he's getting. He's a nice pay down center. He also makes it an interesting play to maybe go over the top, pay up for like a Towns and Jokic kind of thing if you could afford that. I think that's another way to play against him if you don't want to play him. But I like Thomas Bryant. I'm getting him in about 55% of my lineups right now, so I'm above the field on him, and I feel pretty comfortable with it.
Swear to God, if Aaron Nesmith goes off today after being an absolute dunce cap yesterday, I swapped onto so much. I think a lot of people did. I think it was the sharp thing to do, results independent. He goes out, gets 2 quick ones. He gets completely neglected on the bench the entire rest of the first half. plays 13 minutes in a starting spot there. I'm really hoping Benedict Mathurin jumps into that starting lineup so we don't have to think about it as much. But I look at the rest of this team and everybody's in play. Pascal Siakam, Tyrese Halliburton's at 8,200 against Washington. These are the kind of times you would have like a $9,500 Tyrese Halliburton last season. But hey, the conditions have changed. He's obviously had, almost a full season now, a little over a full season with Pascal Siakam from last year getting traded over. But you've got some interesting ownership coming in on the rest of these indie guys. I hate that I'm double the field on Tyrese Halliburton, but it feels like a guy who's just not going to get steamed up in like the best matchup you can possibly run into. How do you feel about him and the rest of the Pacers?
So like I like these guys conceptually. Projection wise, I am a little bit lower on Halliburton, a little bit lower than Siakam in my projection set compared to Stokastic's data. That said, like you still have to get some amount here. So I'm with the field on Siakam, with the field on Halliburton based on my projection set. Stokastic sim would give me a little bit more, get me closer to 50% Siakam. I get it. It's going against Washington. You are down Miles Turner, who is a little bit of a higher usage guy, a little bit more of a functional part of the offense than Thomas Bryant is. But I think these guys are kind of appropriately priced for the most part. So I don't want to be zeroed on them, but I think like the matchup's kind of priced in there. The situation's priced in there. Mathurin playing less minutes has given these guys a little more upside, just made their price tags come up, I think, enough at this point. So I get why you'd want to attack the spot versus Washington, but to me, this feels like one of those times where it's like, there's some times where the teams going against Washington, going against Atlanta look like absolute smash plays to me. They don't look like a smash play. They look like a pretty good play on a slate where there might be better plays.
Yeah, Pascal Siakam, Tyrese Halliburton look like really good plays to me. They're mid-range. They project over 40, 7,700 Pascal Siakam. I think both of them just fitting into lineups really nicely for me. I look at the Washington side, and it's kind of the opposite. I know it's Indy that they get for a pace-up spot, but Jordan Poole, this is just kind of different where they have 14 active bodies by my count, and this is different than the Washington we had been looking at of old. Malcolm Brogdon can now come in relief duty of Jordan Poole. That's not helpful. Carlton Carrington has other people pushing him. Plus, he's up to 5,300. Corey Kispert, AJ Johnson got acquired in that trade. And, there's times that they're going to dust him off at times. I don't really like getting to the Washington side one as much.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you, I think. Basically, my high guys, Jordan Poole, got him about 7%. The field's at about 11%, so I'm under on him. I'm fully agreed with you. Like, I think the reason, and it's just a little bit of a false flag for me last week, where I played a ton of Jordan Poole versus the Cavs at the end of last week, and he had an outlier day there. He put up 60 fantasy points, had all the usage, had all the the run out you'd expect. But that was a really short roster for Washington. And as Eric pointed out, like Washington's now got a lot of guys they can to. Doesn't mean they're going to go to all of them, but there are about 10 guys projected to play minutes today. 11 if you want to count guys like AJ Johnson projected to play about like 1 minute and change. So there's enough guys for Washington to go to that I don't think Poole's a priority necessarily, even though I like him as a tournament option. I like Tristan Vukovic. Like he's been great in these spots lately. But he's also not guaranteed center run and going to get even less now with Alex Sarin. I don't know how they keep him off the court because he literally he shot the Wizards in the game last time out. He feels like he needs to be out there, but you have Holmes, you have Sar back in. So everything's kind of crowded no matter where you're looking on the Wizards. I don't think they're a great play, but if they hang in there versus Indiana, somebody probably had, a decent enough day to make a lineup.
Yeah, the assumption you're making is that Washington wants to win basketball games, which I think is the opposite of their goal right now.
Yeah, if you're playing Sar, I don't know, like you're putting Sar back in at this point. They should have been starting Vukovic this whole time. It should have been Rashawn Holmes. It drives me nuts because Vukovic is like so much fun, like a 1.2 fantasy point per guy, and he just doesn't get enough minutes.
I was really, really mad. Also, Jordan Klein, Yobi Trice, love it. $9.99. Appreciate the super chat. Throw that in for my guy. Appreciate the advice every night. P.S. I got wrecked yesterday. Yeah, it was an interesting slate. When Kevin Huerter isn't the reason that you got murdered, it was a weird slate. Aaron Nesmith was the devil, and Bull was the truth. And we'll obviously talk about him here a little bit later, but no time to dilly-dally. Philly, Brooklyn. Philly, 3-point favorites despite Joel Embiid sitting. It was weird that they didn't come out right away and say that he was going to be sitting on the back-to-back. I'll at least keep a mental note going for that one going forward where maybe there's a world where he plays on a back-to-back and you're able to get some value, but it doesn't matter for DFS purposes. And the only guy pulling any ownership right now, Quentin Grimes. And I get it. If he ends up starting, he started the second half yesterday, I could see myself getting to a little bit, but everybody else in the entire game, sub 3.5%. And I think they should be. Outside of like maybe a Tyrese Maxey shot, is there anybody you can make a case for outside of Quentin Grimes in this game?
I think it's Grimes for me. Grimes playing about 30 minutes now coming in when his big issue in Dallas is that he just kind of got jerked around that rotation a lot. Now he's getting locked into minutes. Seems like he's kind of iced Ricky Council, iced some of the lesser guys who aren't Justin Edwards in the rotation. So yeah, Grimes I think looks good. Everything else here, not so good. It's a really low pace spot. I would have this under 97 possessions again. So two of the lowest pace teams in the league and a rare spot where Philadelphia would actually be in a pace down. That's what they're in for today. Total's not bad, so maybe you expect some efficient shooting, but these guys to me, like I usually do get some Maxey, some Paul George when you're getting beat out because the rates go up a pretty good amount for Maxey in particular. But as it is right now, they now have enough new bodies in as well. I think that Grimes looks good and everybody else just kind of looks like a turn option that somebody else will play and win the money with, but probably not me today.
Yeah, the one I'm worried about, if you get Nick Claxton ruled out, what do we do with Day'Ron Sharpe? Because Day'Ron Sharpe is such a good fantasy performer. 1.16 DraftKings points per minute, 543 minutes of court time this season, 22.5% usage, 14% assist rate, 20% rebound rate. It would be hard to keep him out of lineups.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. If Claxton were out, certainly getting Sharp as a value would be, I think there'd be a lot of him and Thomas Bryant lines floating around out there. If he is in though, if Claxton is in, the team is also like not priced correctly. They are kind of actively tanking, even though they've seemed to be winning more games than they have when they're actually playing hard earlier in the year. They're like pulling guys a lot. Nobody's playing big minutes. The Nets to me are not a good team, but that kind of play, like Claxton being out, even if they gave Sharp, 25 minutes in that one, he would look like one of your better value plays on the slate.
All right, and number 5 here, and then we'll take a quick, well, no, there's really no break throughout this show. We're going to be talking nonstop, my friend. Atlanta, New York. Atlanta sitting around 8.5, depending on where you're looking, which shop you're looking at, 241.5 total. Jalen Brunson sank everybody's battleship yesterday. There is really no doubt about that. But starting on the Atlanta side, we got Karis LeVert, 4,800 here for Karis LeVert. And there's a couple of things that are going for him this time around. One, Vic Krejci is out. You've got an opportunity for him to potentially just walk into more minutes as a result of that. He played 32 last time with Vic Krejci in against Orlando, performed pretty admirably. Plus, he's always been a good fantasy producer, and on a high-paced Atlanta team here, he's got a path to more minutes. He's got a path to more opportunity. I think amongst all of the chalk we've talked about so far, 16% Karis LeVert. This is the guy I have the most of, nearly 30% right now in lineups. That can change, but how do you feel about LeVert and the rest of the Hawks?
I'm on the same page as you right now, getting about 30% of him. I certainly can move around if there's better value that opens up. And, I'm a little bit lower on my projection for LeVert, have him at 23 compared to the 24 and change Stokastic has, which
you have
I think will
26.
keep me. Oh, okay. So, wow. Okay. So that's a big stand.
Yeah.
I look, the minutes are there for him. He and Yang are both, seemingly the best version of themselves so far, playing at about a 1 fantasy point per minute pace. So I do get it in the spot versus New York. The one concern point I would have would be like, and people have talked about this narrative on pretty much every piece of NBA content today. Trae Young in the Garden is like a legit kind of thing, and him absorbing a little more usage for guys that are kind of unstable in their roles, like LeVert, like Niang. Maybe they don't get as much of a run out today as kind of the new kids on the block when Dyson Daniels is going to get his work no matter what. Okongwu's going to get his. But there's enough guys out at this point with Krejci being out, rotational pieces not there. I think there's something here that's worth exploring. It seems like LeVert, but I could honestly, you could talk me into flattening LeVert out, taking some Niang too. Like, there's enough cheap Hawks here. They're all getting kind of respectable minutes.
Well, we could probably go on for like days and days and days about a number of like 1% type options on this slate, like really uncovering something. And there's a lot of interest I would have in Mo Gay on a lot of other slates. Assuming that he starts, the guy's a really good fantasy producer, 1.17 DraftKings points per minute. He's sitting right around 1% ownership on DraftKings. And as I said before, you can make this case for a lot of guys, but I think there's a path to potentially more minutes with no Vit Krejci, with no Larry Nance. So like maybe you get some backup 5, although I think the most likely scenario with Clint Capella back is that you get a couple of minutes for him behind Okongwu. But I just want to point out that Mo Gay in just over 100 minutes is a 1.17 DraftKings points per minute player. And assuming that he starts sub 4K, I kind of want to mix him into like 5-6% of lineups and see what happens.
Yeah, I had 100% of him the other night when he got announced as the starter, but he was 3K minimum there, and like it really worked well for that slate. For this slate, I don't think I would get that much of him, but I agree he's worth shots. As Eric mentioned, averaging 1.17 fantasy points per minute, that's good. In court time without Jalen Johnson and DeAndre Hunter, he's actually more like 1.4. Not a big sample size there, but in part because he had that one outlier day where he put up 40 plus fantasy points. But like he's got legit upside. He is not an embarrassed shooter. He will get up some threes. He'll get you some blocks. He'll get you some rebounds. The tough part for me me is like, I just don't know. Like they jerked him around minutes wise a lot last game where it felt like he should have played a few more. But Krejci being out, your hope is that he could get more minutes, and then you get maybe a little bit less for Mann, a little bit less for Niang, a little bit less for LeVert. But I think Gay is worth some shots as well. He's quietly a very fun player that's developed for fantasy.
Yeah, he could end up being fun. He could end up being like a really fun piece to be mixing in sub 4K. Again, we could bring that up for everybody, so I'm not going to do it at every stop, but he's one of the guys I'm definitely got tagged for a little bit later to make sure that I don't lose that exposure. Because if he gets 20 plus minutes, there's 30 plus point upside there, sub 4K. Anyway, we go over to the Knicks side. Jalen Brunson, how could you? How dare you, sir? Karl Anthony Towns, hey, thank you so much for your service to our lineups. And then Josh Hart, sitting there a little bit underowned, but the big Q tag is OG Anunoby. Does he play on the back-to-back? I don't know. Shout out our data team, though. We were way ahead of it. A lot of other places kept him in. We had him out right from the get-go. And Precious Achiuwa, Miles McBride ended up really low owned. Precious Achiuwa was a really nice piece. Didn't even get the double-double. Didn't even put up 10 points. But if you end up getting OG Anunoby for this side, going up against Atlanta, 5,500, he's played 33 or more minutes in 4 straight without OG Anunoby out there. I think Precious Achiuwa, you could fire him up again here, as well as just about everything else here in the starting unit for the Knicks.
Yeah, I think if you got McBride out, in addition to getting Anunoby out, at that point, Achiuwa's got to play a pretty good amount of minutes there, unless they bring somebody else into the rotation that they don't normally want to play, and that's not really been the Knicks' ethos. So I definitely want to watch out for here. Assuming Anunoby's in and assuming that McBride is also in, these guys don't look too great for me. I do think chasing that flop flag for Jalen Brunson seems pretty logical. I loved Towns yesterday, had him in the majority of my lineups. Think he's in a good matchup again today, but Brunson coming off the kind of ticky-tack foul trouble he had, not getting there, having a bad day besides that as well. Now he's going against one of his arch nemesis and Trae Young in his home court. Like, I think there's a narrative here for Brunson that works pretty well. I'm getting him in about 20% of my lineups, so not that far above the field, but his price tag looks good. And, sometimes just buying in the day after the guy was really disappointing. And Brunson really was disappointing in my lineups yesterday. He would look good whether Anunoby's in or out, but would certainly look better if Anunoby were out.
Yeah, campaign. Would he be in play for you 3,300 if McBride sits?
If McBride sits, I think he gets to be in play. I'm not sold that he gets all the run because it feels like he mostly benefits from having Brunson being pulled out. But I think he's in play. I would want to see the Stokastic minutes that the projection team does. But I think he would become more in play because McBride plays a lot of minutes. He doesn't do a lot with it, but somebody's got to fill in there. Could be like a Matt Ryan type. That would be my concern.
Yeah, I'd be worried about Tyler Kolek eating some minutes too. Like that's just kind of the major issue that I have with wanting to fire him up too much on a back-to-back. Campaign's been around the block. Campaign's had a bunch of hits. Chinese food makes him sick. Girls think he's 5 when the girls spot 5 for the summer.
I know where you're going with it. You like girls that wear Abercrombie and Fitch is really what it comes down to at the end of the day.
I wish I didn't do that bit. Promo code Pit Stop. That's what I'm talking about here. We're at the 1/3 point. Oh boy, we're 30 minutes away. We got to get flying, but we're going to go pew, pew, Pit Stop, NASCAR, 50% off any DFS package. Your first payment of any DFS package, that is. With promo code Pit Stop, we got some big races coming up. Plus, there's a ton of edge left in NASCAR DFS. I will say this. I know absolutely nothing about NASCAR. All I do is upload and I try to mimic what I see some of the top players do with our projection sources. And boy, oh boy, it's been pretty darn good for me in Daytona and things of that nature. So check out our premium package here. Any NASCAR product, 50% off with promo code PITSTOP. Alrighty, we got Trae Young available to play. That's good because that would suck if he was unavailable. Hello, Karis LeVert. But Cleveland, 13.5 point favorites on the road in Toronto. No for the boat, eh? I don't know why they're Australian, but here we are. We're getting a weird injury report from Toronto, but that's beside the point. I look at Cleveland, and we've got some interesting Q tags that could really consolidate minutes. If you take Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Ty Jerome out, Craig Porter Jr. would actually be like your only other ball handler there. So if Ty Jerome's out, Craig Porter Jr., I'm not going to say that he's in play in like a blowout nature. I don't think you need to take that shot on this slate, but I could see Garland and Mitchell seeing elevated minutes on the Cleveland side. Anything stand out for you from their end?
I think we're on the same page. I would view it basically the same idea Cleveland any day, where like these guys all currently look like good tournament options. Like we've seen Mobley have the spike days, Zoon Allen have the spike days. Mitchell doesn't feel like has a ton. Garland sometimes. Like any of these guys can go off in a given day, but they're all sort of appropriately priced if everybody's in. If Ty Jerome is out, it's going to look a little bit different because Porter Jr. is not as good of a contributor. Porter Jr. has been at about a 0.74 fantasy point minute pace this year. Ty Jerome's been at 1.12, so would open up some more, stats basically go around that would sort of get funneled more into projection set. Two guys like Donovan Mitchell, two guys like Darius Garland. So Porter himself or Porter Jr. himself would be maybe close to playable, but I'm with you. Like I think Garland and Mitchell would become a more compelling tournament option. That said, these guys are all under 5% projected owned. I think that's about right. It's a nice total for these guys. Like I get taking shots at them, but on this slate, you have so many guys that actually do project really well. I think Cleveland, at best, they project kind of okay. And if Jerome's out, they'll project a little bit better than that.
I have nothing on the Toronto side. I cannot believe Emmanuel Quickly is playing on the back-to-back.
Yeah, quickly got his minutes up, played 33 yesterday, which I wasn't surprised by, given that he got to 30 the game before that. On a back-to-back, though, how does that work out? They ramp him down a little bit. I'm not sure. But assuming these guys all get, Barrett, Barnes, and quickly all get about 30 minutes and change, they're not bad plays as well. Like I think Barrett to me looks like about a 5x value, quickly about a 5x value, but nowhere near the play quickly seemed like yesterday. Tournament options again here. If they keep it competitive, probably one of Barrett, Barnes, or Quickly had a pretty good day because Cleveland's a legit good team that should smoke them. But I think this game to me, like nobody's owned and getting about 9% of Quickly is like my biggest stand here.
Yep. So we're going to move along our merry way to Detroit -6 taking on Chicago. Did you see the halftime score yesterday?
I did. It was bad. I had Buzelis. Buzelis was the thing that kept me from swapping to Bull. So I had to that was my killer on the slate. It was not fun.
Oh, it was very painful. Buzelis was 40% on, I believe, in the main, and that was a tough one to get hit with. But I think one of the more important things we can talk about, and I'm sure Live Before Lock will talk about it, when they can go position by position, talk about the hits. We got Cade Cunningham, 11.5% ownership, and I think there's a world where, hey, he disappointed some people yesterday. I'm not sure the public consensus around something as such as that, but I mean, he only played 27 minutes, which is such an unbelievable outlier. He put up 27 and 6 in 27 minutes. He didn't have an assist in the second half. He didn't have to try in the second half because they were up infinity and beyond points. But Cade Cunningham at 10-4, how do you look at him relative to the other spend-ups that we'll obviously have money for on today's slate?
I'm with the field on Cade. I would currently say, assuming that Anthony Edwards goes, I think I'd prefer Ant to him at a little bit cheaper. I also prefer Towns a little bit cheaper to him. But I think Cade's in that group. I have him pretty well projected today. He's always been a little bit better, I think, than his price tag kind of gives him when you have Jaden Ivey out, and that's obviously going to be the case for the rest of the year. I just think his price hasn't caught up as much as it should, given the fact that he becomes like about a 1.5 fancy point per minute guy without Ivy out there. So I like Cade in terms of pay-up options, not really getting much else, getting the standard amount of Asar Thompson you get on pretty much every slate. Beasley, who I usually get because he's been really good this year and gains a good amount from not having Jaden Ivey out there in terms of usage. I'm not really getting him today. Got him in about 3% of my lineups. There's just, unfortunately, like I feel like I have to keep saying it. It's not the most helpful thing, but like there's a lot of great plays in the slate. This is another team. There's a few okay plays to pretty good plays. And I think Cade's pretty good. I think Beasley's pretty good. I think Asar Thompson is a little bit less good, but still fairly good. But because they're just better plays to go to, you don't get a lot of these guys.
Yeah, we don't get to run back the same box score, the same game from yesterday, which is probably a good thing because obviously I had no Cade Cunningham yesterday. And had that game played out, I think I would have been dead in the water. So got a little bit bailed out by the blowout for sure on that side of things. Chicago, I mean, they were just downright embarrassing on the other side of this one. And one thing that I saw over in Portfolio EV early this morning, still sitting there, a little surprised because you can see the EV age over on the Portfolio EV space as well. Under 1.5 threes for Nikola Vucevic. This guy has had no pulse whatsoever, even just before the All-Star break, or not the All-Star break, before the trade deadline. And now after the trade deadline, it just feels like he's out there sleepwalking, and I don't understand it, but he's 7,900. We're getting a sub 8K Vucevic with no Zach LaVine there at sub 8K against Jaren Duren. I feel like I have to take some shots on that in some way, shape, or form. But otherwise, Buzelis, the only guy pulling any ownership, 4%. Another team that's just unowned on this slate.
Yeah, I'm not getting much here. And for the Vooch thing, I think there is a pretty credible reason why he's not getting there. And it's that he like loses usage from not having Levine out there because there was sort of a defined pecking order before where Kobe White, Giddey would defer to Levine and Levine would defer to Vooch a certain amount. Now instead you have Dosunmu, Giddey, and White out there, kind of Lord of the Flies. They're all looking for their own shot. They're all trying to do their own thing. And you're not getting Vooch getting the same opportunity. So like his rates are down. He averages like 1.15 fancy points per minute without Levine as opposed to the 1.23 he averages normally. So he's been a worse player. Maybe that stabilizes, but at 3% or whatever for the field today, I'm not there. I had really none of him yesterday and he was chalk. It's not a great spot for the team right now. They're kind of more than appropriately priced for the guys they have in. And when you add, if you did have Lonzo in, I guess he's now out of the projection set, but when you had him in earlier, they looked worse. Now they still look not great to me as it is.
Yeah, I love a good William Golding joke. It's always good stuff. Damian Lillard out. Holy shit, what great timing that is. As we
Ooh.
jump to Milwaukee, Minnesota, oh my God, I have all the Bobby Portis in all the land in the betting streets. That makes me happy. Over 2.5 assists. If he does not do it today, Spags.
He still played 27 minutes last game. That's the one thing I will cling to no matter what. But that was an awful DFS game last time. I don't even know how it went that poorly, but it just did.
Yeah, well, this completely changed the slate already. We got Giannis and Dame Lillard out here on the Milwaukee side of things. There's no Chris Middleton there in Milwaukee either. We are going to be looking at a pure punt situation here. Milwaukee, one of those rare teams too that doesn't, because we've got 5 games tomorrow. This is one of those teams that doesn't play tomorrow. So it's giving Dame some extended rest going into the All-Star break. Giannis not going to be playing in the All-Star game. We'll see what happens here with Dame himself, but Dame, hamstring issue. I thought it was a pretty good chance that he was going to end up sitting. Too bad. So sad. We are going to be talking about this team a lot and on Live Before Lock, but let's start with this. Bobby Portis has a 28% assist rate when you take Giannis, Dame, and one Chris Middleton off the floor. It's a very small sample size, just over 150 minutes, but his points plus rebounds already put him kind of into play on this slate. He's 6,900. He's the most expensive option on the Milwaukee side. Yeah, it's a trash Minnesota, it's a tough spot, as in like Minnesota's defense is good, and this could get really trash and they could get murdered, but for every minute that he's out there, Bobby Portis is going to look unbelievable today.
Yeah, the rates do take a really big jump up. I mean, with Lillard in, I would have had Portis at 1.4 fantasy points a minute. Would have had him projected for a double-double. With Lillard being out, there's just more points upside to go around. It's a tough Minnesota matchup, but a guy like Portis, I'm really not worried about that too much here. Your big issue with Portis is the fact that he's not starting right now, but didn't start last game, still got to 27 minutes. I think he can be productive enough in 25 to 27, let's say he doesn't get any more at all, 25 to 27 minutes. I think he can still hit it. So I'm with you on Portis. I didn't get him a ton of the sim before the show. I'm going to be above that by a large margin, I think. I don't know if he's going to be in every lineup, but with my projection for him, I think he's going to get pretty close to it. The issue at point guard is it used to be a thing where you could lock in Ryan Rollins when you had Lillard out. Now you can't do that because Porter Jr. played more minutes than Rollins last game. Rollins got the first stint with Dame out, and then basically Porter came in and played more minutes. They didn't go to Rollins when Lillard left the court the second time. So I think Rollins is unfortunately iced. Do you have a lean about Porter Jr.? Because it seems like he's the same player no matter where he goes, and he is under 4K, and I think he's probably the one you want to take a shot at.
Oh, for sure. I'm piecing together my thoughts on it because I think that more likely than not, we get Ryan Rollins starting at 3K. I do think that it would be strange to me to have Kevin Porter Jr. go out there and start when he hasn't been with the team, whereas Ryan Rollins has been with the team for so long and plays like 28, 30 minutes in these kind of spots as spot starts without Dame on the floor. So I'm inclined to think Ryan Rollins is going to still get the start, and he's a decent enough fantasy performer. But obviously, Kevin Porter Jr., if he's starting, he's the Hulk slam. Good fantasy producer, entire team basically to just him, Kuzma, and Portis. I think Kuzma's definitely going to be the other guy to talk about. And Gary Trent Jr. has been eating up a ton of usage, been playing 33, 28 minutes here recently as well with Giannis gone. They need to try to inflict some kind of a three-point shooting out onto the floor. I think him at 4K is going to be something that we potentially talk about as well, but like completely different situation. It is so hard for me to know, though. It's Doc Rivers. I expect the unexpected, but my assumption is that Rollins starts and is going to look incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair way to look at it. I would be worried about the Rollins minutes. What I would probably do is get some Rollins and then lineups where I'm not getting Rollins, try to boost it so I'm getting more Kevin Porter Jr., not Michael Porter Jr. I think Yeah, it changes the situation. I would watch out for a Porter Jr. start though, because like they got one game
Yeah.
in, and that second half rotation is weird. Like for them to just not play Rollins, and they have jerked Rollins minutes around even in games without Lillard before. So I think no matter what, I'm gonna get some Kevin Porter Jr., but you'd feel a lot better about it if he's starting.
Did Porter Jr. play alongside Lillard at all?
Yeah, so the end of the first half,
Okay.
they Porter Jr. played an entire stint, came in alongside Lillard for 6 minutes in the end of the first half.
Yeah, I'm going through this because that is gonna be very important to me. Just as far as like who I think starts between the two of them. Obviously, everybody is in play wearing a Milwaukee uniform. They're cheap. They're gonna potentially like Kevin Porter Jr. getting blowout run would be just outrageous. Like it would be outrageous, especially against Dillingham. Oh my God, those two back and forth. That'll be fun.
Yeah, so yesterday they had a little bit of blowout run and they went to Ryan Rollins and didn't play him in the second half. Besides that, when Lillard left at the end of the third quarter, they went to Porter Jr. to fill in for him. Then when Porter Jr. left, they went back to Lillard. It's one game, so that might not be everything, but it feels like they tried the previous rotation. My assumption would be they tried the previous rotation, didn't like it. Then they were like, all right, well, Porter Jr. back up. And then that would theoretically make him the one that could gain the most from Lillard today, but game
Yeah,
to game
what's
with Doc,
annoying.
who knows?
Yeah, that's what's so annoying about this because again, Rollins checked in, yeah, at the very last section there, the 110 mark. That's going to be something you want to check out our projections team live before lock. Jonathan Isaac now questionable. Good thing he plays for Orlando, and that won't matter as much. Although maybe it shores up some center minutes, or we see a Wendell Carter Jr. start alongside. That'd be weird to me, though. Anything else to talk about with Milwaukee? Because obviously that was unbelievable timing for that to drop.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think everybody's going to look more playable here. I would just exercise caution around the point guards. And we didn't talk about Kuzma at all. I'm low on Kuzma. I feel like he's been shit this whole year. He's actually had lower usage, lower rebound rate, lower assist rates as being on Milwaukee. He's going to look better now from Lillard being out, but like, I think there's a chance with the industry projections out there, he's going to become mega chalk. I am not sold on Kuzma being worth any mega chalk status on any slate, but especially a 14 gamer.
Yeah, he's 6,300, which helps us out a little bit. It was a completely different ball of wax when he was, what, 3,800 that first
Yeah.
game. That made no sense. So, like, I played him as Mega Chalk there. I played him as Mega Chalk at 5,300. It didn't burn me by any means, but at 6,300, they're giving us a little bit of a bailout where I don't think he'll pop the same way you think he will. He'll start, get the first crack. He'll look good, don't get me wrong, but I think we have so many options that if you want to get away from just about anybody on this slate outside of Bobo, and we'll get there, you can make a case for it. But Minnesota on the other side, Ant, high, he matters a lot. Mike Conley also questionable. We got Mike Conley playing, sitting out against Cleveland. This is a really tough schedule for my Minnesota Timberwolves. They played in Cleveland Monday. Ant did go out and try to scorch earth it and save it after the terrible first quarter, but they play Oklahoma City tomorrow with Chet Holmgren coming back to his hometown of Minneapolis. That'll be fun. Yeah, Apple Valley, what up? But I look at everything on the Minnesota side is just hinging on. I mean, this game could end up being mega chalk, and I think I'd want to get to a lot more of these Milwaukee pieces and maybe even like make sure that I had some game stacks of it if we get Ant and Conley out. How do you feel you're going to be playing this one as of now?
If Ant is in, I want to get with the field's ownership. I think probably above the 14% percent or so that's being projected right now. He goes to about a 38% usage rate guy in court time without Randall and without DiVincenzo this year. And really in this spot here, depleted Milwaukee team. Like Edwards put up a ton of shots versus Cleveland. It didn't go as well as it could have initially, and that's part of why he only put up 55 fantasy points. But he honestly, if he had played even remotely well in that game, he probably would have gone for 70. So I think in this spot versus a depleted Milwaukee team, like going Anthony Edwards if he's in is one of the plays I like the most in the slate. He and Towns would be my two payout priorities besides Jokic if I could afford that. So I like Ant a lot if he's in. Like Eric mentioned, if Ant's out, it's anybody is going to be in game in play here. Alexander Walker and Conley would get the start if Conley goes, I guess. If not, it would be Alexander Walker and Dillingham. We saw Alexander Walker put up 40 fantasy points last week without Edwards. So these guys are going to look really appealing. But as it is right now, to me, it's like Ant looks good in the team. Conley looks okay. And if those guys are out, everybody's going to look infinitely better.
Yeah, I would take shots on Dillingham 4K again. He did not play well in either of the last two sessions for him, but he still saw 23 minutes, got some blowout run against Cleveland. And I think Dillingham's just one of those guys that has 25 real points sitting in the bag at any given moment. And we haven't seen it yet. So I'm pretty excited to take shots on guys like that. He is a walking bucket emoji. So just let that be known. I love Rob Dillingham. But Sacramento, -6.5 taking on New Orleans, 238.5 total here. Zion Williamson, that seems like a pretty important questionable tag, if you ask me. But otherwise, on the Sacramento side of things, perfectly healthy team, perfectly efficient, very hard for me to get to anything.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you. Getting a little bit more Sabonis. He's kind of been the usage rate winner so far, though I think that's going to stabilize a little bit as Levine starts to hit more shots. But getting Sabonis about 12% right now, I think it's going to come down a little bit with some of the stuff that's opening up. With the field on Monk, 8% for him. Low on Levine, though I do think he is desperately due to shoot better. I'm willing to get some Levine today. Like if they're making jokes about it, Malik Monk, I mentioned this, I think, with Josh the other day, but like a social media clip of him like making fun of Levine not hitting shots. Like this guy was hitting every shot before he got here. Now he's not. They're making jokes about it. They know Levine's at some point going to get right and then kind of going to assume more of a role. He won't be as much of an assist guy as Fox has been, but like I think if you want to get early on Levine, today's not a bad day to do it. These guys all to me look like 5 to 10% plays for the most part if you want to kind of talk yourself into Levine and DeRozan, but the best projected guys to me are Sabonis and Monk by a pretty decent clip.
All right, so I bet Evis Missy on the New Orleans side of things, 5,200. Not going to be playing him in DFS, that's for sure, but I think he's locked into 30-plus minutes in most scenarios. He's played 30-plus in 4 straight. Points, rebounds, that's what I fired up there. But I cannot tell you how excited I would be about Karlo Matkovic in the event you got Zion Williamson ruled out. This guy is basically a 5. Oh, God, Tyrese Maxey questionable. Live before lock, we'll cover that. We have no time to go back in time whatsoever, but if Zion ends up getting ruled out, this team is going to look awesome. If not, Zion's a piece that you could play, but I want it on your radar that Karlo Matkovic, 4,100, power forward center, he's basically a backup 5. I think he could walk backup 5, especially if Jeremiah Robinson-Earl starts at the 4. I think it's more likely that Javonte Green does, but just for what it's worth, Karlo Matkovic starting 4,100, he also has that nuclear ceiling ability if you get Zion off the floor.
I don't know if I would say he has a nuclear ceiling ability with the 0.86 fantasy points per minute. Like, because in my mind, I had him viewed similarly as like Vukovic on Washington, where it's like, this guy could fill it up. He's played enough minutes now where I don't think he's a guy who could fill it up. But I agree, like getting the amount of minutes he could get at power forward looks pretty good at a $4,100 price tag. Kind of the same thing for Robinson Earl. If he were to somehow move back ahead of Matkovic somehow, you never know at a given slate. But I like as it is right now, I kind of hope Zion goes because I like him as a tournament play. Trey Murphy as well as average 1.22 fantasy points per minute. In core time without Ingram and without Murray, and like he should be a better version of himself as well. Certainly would look even better if Zion were out. I like the Pelicans as kind of a tournament option. The total here doesn't spook me off. Honestly, a 6-point spread going against New Orleans at home, to me, that feels like Zion playing. I don't know if that's actually the case, but if he doesn't play, I think Murphy and McCollum look the best to me. And the minutes guys, like Eric talked about, getting Matkovic with him getting more minutes, getting more of Bruce Brown is in the rotation. Maybe he get a random start here. That'd be kind of surprising, but it's possible. Something weird could happen with New Orleans if Zion's out, but if he's in, I kind of like him as a play.
One thing to keep in mind, Karlo Matkovic was Zion Williamson. Just Zion Williamson off the floor this season. Fantasy point per minute guy.
Okay. I didn't know that. Good.
Yeah. That's why I better have something to defend myself. Because otherwise I'm just speaking out of my ass. Like, I don't know. I do all the other times. Let's go over to the next game. One more that will take another 2-second break. But Miami, 14-point dogs against Oklahoma City. Nothing to talk about with Miami if Tyler Hero is in, if you get all of these other pieces in. But in the event that Hero sits, in the event that Terry Rozier, who got a late downgrade and I'm assuming will end up sitting as well, sits, Alec Burks, 3,500, right back in play against the best defense in basketball. What a time to be alive.
Yeah, I think that's it. As it is right now, nobody here looks playable to me. Certainly there's some world where if Hero plays, you could shoot him into the game versus OKC. But as it is right now, total being where it is, I'm not sold that he does play. I'm with you. I think getting Hero out, getting Rozier out, getting Burks as a starter would probably be the best outcome here. As it is right now, these guys look like unplayable to me. I have nobody above 1% ownership.
OKC, Isaiah Hartenstein, 6,500. The tag's coming down, but I repeat, Chet Holmgren is out. They play Minnesota tomorrow, and he's going back to Minneapolis. He was obviously, when you give him the chance to go back to his hometown and play basketball in the city that he won a bunch of state titles, you have an opportunity to rest him on the front end. And that could be a lot of minutes for Isaiah Hartenstein against Cleo Ware, against Bam Adebayo. He looks by far the best on this team. I think Jalen Williams, somebody I want to be mixing into lineups. And SGA at 1%, what could be more fun than 1% Wemby SGA lineups? I guess there's a lot more things that, are going to project better, but how do you feel about OKC as a whole? Because I feel like it's Hartenstein and pass.
Yeah, I'm getting 2x the field on Hartenstein, getting him about 15%, a little bit more than that compared to the field 7. Just him getting enough of an increase here, playing alongside guys, like Holmgren in particular, going to decrease his block upside, going to decrease his rebounding upside. Obviously, the usage too for him is not quite as good, but getting him out should lead to a little bit of an increase there in all the above categories. So I think he's priced pretty well. I'll get him a good amount here, though not like a must-have in every lineup kind of play. With you conceptually on SGA being the kind of play where you have every pay-up option, it's a little bit tough to kind of price them down and say which ones you really just want to have more. But I think SGA in terms of the upside, like he'd be one of those guys you look at, Wemby as well, like Eric mentioned, that could have that slate winning upside at very low ownership. But I think really Hartenstein is kind of the projection based play here the most by a pretty wide margin.
Anything that we have over in Portfolio EV here, Jordan Klein? Anything? Do we have anything from that game, Portfolio EV? Okay. Oh, you're good. Well, hit the video because we have Portfolio EV. If you guys are looking to sign up, get an opportunity to jump on in. Video description box below, also the description box over in chat. Portfolio EV is a great opportunity using the best market-based tools that exist in the entire industry. You have screenshots here. You have screenshots there. You have screenshots everywhere from happy users as well as everybody else here at Stokastic that has been utilizing these tools to make real cash moolah no matter where you live. You could live no matter where. Now, obviously, Fliff got a lot more difficult to beat here in recent days, but there are a bunch of books. DraftKings, only in Oregon, in Maine, I believe. That's the only book you have access to. Awesome. Take advantage of all of their lines every single day. Take advantage using the best tools, market-based tools that exist in the industry. Portfolio EV, really great stuff. And check out all the great Portfolio EV shows that are getting started up here by our guys, Laffy, by Greg, up on the next show. Check out everything here on a day-to-day basis. Plus, as we're working through these games, I'm going to be incorporating this more and more because, well, it's fun to make money. That's why we're here. We're here to make money. Help us do that with you. Help me help you, Portfolio EV. That seems like a pretty good. I think that's already used though. I think
you just came up with that on the fly. It never existed.
Yeah, that was 100% authentic. I'm not a liar. Phoenix, I'm not gonna lie when I tell you they're popular. +9 going up against Houston. Congratulations. 30K points for Kevin Durant. That's a hearty amount of points, but hearty amount of ownership on Bull, who started out of the middle of nowhere yesterday, ended up being sub 10%, and it was the nuke of all nukes. If I had nuked him, you would never hear from me again, and I would never do the nuke of night segment again because that would have been too good. But Bull, more, less than 2/3 of lineups right now, 68% owned.
Yeah, I'm getting him an 85% of mine. He's played over 24 minutes the last 3 games, over 30 the last 2. Young legs here. I have some concerns Durant gets ruled out. If that's the case, Bull's got to be locked into about 30 minutes. He's been a really good producer, averaging 1.14 fantasy points a minute. It's actually been a little bit worse with Booker and Beal off the court, more like a 1 fantasy point per minute guy. But if he plays 30 minutes, it just doesn't matter, and he still has a 50 fantasy point upside. So yeah, Bull, if I had to play him in no lineups or every lineup, I'd play him in every lineup. And I think as it is right now, like I'll probably end up playing him in pretty much every lineup.
Yeah, I'm looking at the last sim that I just ran here in the background. 93% of lineups. He is so hard to get away from. He's so fun. He's probably the easiest guy to cheer for ever. Plus, how many times can you play 93% of a guy that I have made thousands of dollars at the craps table at the Cosmopolitan with? Not very often.
It doesn't happen often enough. As far as I know, at least.
It was great. NBA Summer League. Those are my favorite times to go to Vegas. But anywho, that is neither here nor there. We don't have time for stories. We got to talk about Kevin Durant. Anything else here from Phoenix? Because Tyus Jones, that's a lot of people who want to play Tyus Jones today.
Yeah, I'm above the field on Tyus Jones by a little bit. I'm about 2x the field on Kevin Durant. So Durant's got really weird splits. There's no game this year where Booker and Beal haven't played, but overall in court time without those two guys, Durant doesn't have the biggest sample size. I think we're at about 300 possessions or so. I'll fact check that in a moment here. But he's averaged just shy of 1.7 fantasy points per minute without those guys. So like, basically for Durant, and I don't expect that to hold up, but like if he does play today, the assist upside goes up, the usage goes to about 40%. He could be a player that's worth, at least the field's 15% ownership, if not more. If he doesn't go, and I really am baffled by why he would go on a back-to-back for a team that reports coming out today, they're going to trade him no matter what in the offseason. A little bit surprised if he goes, but if he goes, probably that whole question around him will lead to people playing him less than they should.
Alperen Şengün, questionable over on the Houston side. If he plays, nothing really that stands out all that much to me. You could take your trace shots of Jalen Green or Amin Thompson. We know what those ceilings look like, but even with Şengün out, I still don't know what I would want to get to in like some crazy amount. Steven Adams, would look okay, I suppose. We know Jabari Smith going to be coming back in 10 days. He said February 21st. So that was good to see some official word on. But like, what are you planning to do with Houston with Şengün in or out?
Şengün, I'm getting about 5%. I think Amin Thompson would become a better play if Şengün were out, just having more of the peripherals that Şengün and Thompson kind of compete for. Rebounds in particular, but some of the stock stuff, they kind of overlap and sort of taking away possessions. So I think if Şengün comes out, it comes a little bit easier to play Amin Thompson. VanVleet out, there really isn't a big winner for the team. Everybody gets a little bit better. So getting about 5% of Jalen Green, I'm okay with him. Mentioned getting about 5% of Şengün, I'm okay with that. Getting Amin Thompson around the field, 6% feels about right as well. I think Houston's one of those teams where like they look okay, but if you have an outlier day from somebody here versus a really depleted Phoenix team, it wouldn't be shocking. And nobody here above 10% owned, and probably somebody will be useful from it.
Speaking of depleted teams, the Portland Trailblazers taking on the Denver Nuggets. We've got tons of potential depleted teams. I mean, obviously, Denver, Michael Porter Jr. questionable, Aaron Gordon questionable. We already have and Westbrook out. But Portland, they're still waiting on Thibault. But now Scoot Henderson, who started last time out, he is out. DeAndre Ayton sounds like he's going to be out for a long time with this left calf injury. And that is going to open up Donovan Clingan and potentially even more value because Jeremy Grant questionable here as well. I just ask you this. How much Delano Banton could you possibly stomach? Because I have a Delano Banton plan in place just for this game.
Okay, I mean, I would need more people to be out to go crazy on Banton.
Same.
I think he projects as like a 5x value for me right now. Getting a lot more Simons currently, getting him in about 25%, getting Clingan around 20% now that Stokastic gave him a few more minutes compared to the earlier run of data. So I think Banton, I mean, he's one of those great producers where the situation could work out for him. But I would need somebody else to be out here as it is. I think Avdia looks worth about 5%. Simons, I would say 20 to 25. And Clingan to me about 20 to 25. I would prefer if you can get to him, Thomas Bryant, but I think Clingan, okay, just has more of a direct pivot in Robert Williams there.
Yeah, I think Chris Murray, obviously Robert Williams, if he's out, Donovan Clingan gets all the minutes here. So the two guys that are pulling ownership, Clingan and Simons, I think they should be pulling ownership. I'm right around the field on both. Like the idea of Denny Avdia, 6,400. He could play 40 minutes just by default, even in like semi non-competitive games, like 20, 22-point blowouts midway through the fourth. I think you could still see Denny Avdia on the court. Shaedon Sharpe, I assume, would end up being the other starter that would be interesting, but Delano Banton off the like completely from left field, 2-3% owned 4K Delano Banton. That's somebody that I would definitely want to have some lineups open with if Jeremy Grant's out, if Chris Murray's out. Again, a very shorthanded team relative to what they've been in the past. As for Denver, there's this Jokic guy. You can play him any day ending in Y. Outside of that, if you get Gordon and Porter Jr. in, nothing really stands out to me. If you get them out, you could take shots on Brown and such, but he's already up to 6,300 now here. Is there anything that you're planning with Denver?
Yeah, I think if Gordon comes out, I'll probably take another look at these guys as it is right now, getting 3x the field on Jokic, which feels great. Just be able to get there a little bit on the slate where there isn't right now like super smash 3K values to get to. I think Jokic looks really good if you can find a way to get there. If more value opens up, I think people get to Jokic more. I'd have him just shy of 70 fantasy points today versus Portland, and he's a monster. So get Jokic if you can. If Gordon's out, I think take another look at everybody. In particular, Porter Jr. and Brown become playable, but I'm with you. Like the price tag's kind of mostly appropriate for those guys at this point.
Lakers, Utah, only one player in the entire game pulling over 3.5% ownership. That is John Collins. Jordan Goodwin pulling the second most, which is just an absurd thing to say out loud. That should not continue, but I think John Collins is the only one I have a share of in this game. We have a 10-5 LeBron, a 10-7 Luka. Luka not playing enough minutes, I don't think, right from the get-go to matter. Even if he got up to 30-32, he would really need to go crazy in a game. Musa Diabate out. Holy shit. We're going to just get a reckoning coming with Yusuf Nurkic if he starts. This is going to be awful. But John Collins, only guy I've got in the game. Do you have anything from this one?
Yeah, getting about 5% John Collins, nothing else. I just don't think you should play Luka and LeBron together at this point while they're priced for their lives without each other. And that's going to be a lot of adjusting for those guys in terms of usage and all the other stats.
Golden State coming up here next against Dallas. And this is a very important game, I think, to talk about purely because we've got Moses Moody, Buddy Hield, Steph Curry all pulling around 10% ownership. This is a Dallas team that has no interior whatsoever. And that's where PJ Washington starting at the 5 could be really interesting. We have Brandon Pajemski at 5,400. We just had Steve Kerr go from like a wide open rotation, being able to play everybody to by default, by trading away Wiggins, trading away Kyle Anderson, getting rid of a number of pieces. This is a far more condensed rotation than what it's been in the past. How do you feel about Golden State? Because I feel like you can take random shots on everybody, and this is the latest game on the DraftKings slate.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think random shots at everybody look pretty good. Buddy Hield getting a lot of exposure that way, getting more than 2x on him with 11% expected ownership. He's projected to play about 28 minutes and it's been pretty good on the year and seems like he's mostly keeping the usage so far. I did adjust the Golden State rates a little bit to reflect Jimmy Butler being in because he's been playing like a different man and his playing well. He's averaging 1.4 fantasy points a minute. It directly pulls from Draymond, directly pulls from guys like Moody, who you could really knock the usage down. He's been about a 14% usage rate guy if you want to. I would question earlier today, it looked like there's going to be Draymond chalk, Moody chalk. Seems like that's stabilized, but it seems to me like Butler is kind of taken over a lot for Golden State. Steph's usage has gone up too. Like they're consolidating, at least so far in a small sample size. And I think that could be something like Butler. I will take some tournament shots on today because 1.4 for him is nobody's going to be aware of that, I think, at this point.
We got Exum in Washington that are questionable there on the Dallas side of things. And again, I can't believe we're going to make this, Spags. We're actually going to make this on time. Tyrese Maxey out. That seems like it matters. But anyway, we're going to just continue on our merry way and talk about this situation. If you get PJ Washington out, who the hell starts at the 5 for the Dallas Mavericks today?
Omax, I think, would start. And then you get more of Kyler Kelly, I think would be it.
I think so too.
Yeah. Okay. So that's how that would look. Yeah.
If it weren't Golden State on the other side, I'd be pretty positive that you would start Kyler Kelly, like if you got a true center, but you could start Najee Marshall and OMP together. Like that would be no problem.
I mean, when Gafford got hurt the other day, they did go Omax in the second half. So that's why I think that's where my brain would go. But I agree, Kyler Kelly, if you wanted big, like he would make sense. But yeah, with Golden State, you want some switchability. So I would think you probably get Omax out there doing the best he can.
Yeah, I will say this, 3,600 Kevon Looney. We saw Jonas Valanciunas and Domantas Sabonis share the floor together for Sacramento as they tried to take advantage of the fact that they had nobody over 6'7" on the floor last time. I don't know if you noticed that, but that was pretty wild to me. I definitely have some Kevon Looney interest because he has like 20 rebound upside in this game.
Yeah, makes sense.
Maybe just ladder him and make money that way instead. Whatever.
Probably makes more sense.
Yeah, Memphis, 5.5 point dogs. This is on the FanDuel slate only. You got the Clippers, 235.5 total. And John Morant, questionable. Seems like something you might want to account for and have a plan in place. However, on FanDuel, when you work through it, you don't get the bonus for Luke Kennard knocking down threes that you would get if this were on the DraftKings slate. So it's not as potent for me. This comes down to, yeah, even though it's a Clippers team on the other side, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., pretty prominent rate boosts when you take John Morant off the floor. I would want to build a little bit more of those guys into this, but on the back-to-back, pretty flat minutes, terrible Clipper spot. Would you be planning anything here for Desmond Bane and for the John Morant news?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like there should be something here, but I'm with you. Like it is kind of a pretty big pace down for him. Gets tough defense, so I don't think Memphis looks that appealing for the FanDuel slate. But you know, I would get taking shots on Jackson, on Bane. I think in particular, Scottie Pippen, I probably wouldn't play at this point. I think we've kind of seen him get iced when you have one of Bane or Morant available. Kennard, I'm with you. I think is an okay play. Everybody look a little bit better, but I don't think they're must-haves even on FanDuel.
It's not on the FanDuel slate, which is great. I was just pulling up the FanDuel
I thought
stuff.
That was the case.
Yeah, it's great. No, I saw that there was showdown pricing for it, so wanted to just touch base on it in case it was there, but there's no pricing for it here. I didn't run FanDuel lineups. Don't know if you could tell, but here we are. We've reached the end of our boarding walk. 15 up, 15 down. Spag, 65 minutes. We got it all in for the people. You're an absolute warrior. Tell them where you can find that, or tell them where they can find you.
You can check me out on Twitter at Chris Spags. Check out my YouTube channel at Splash Play NBA. I do a stream there every day for this one at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So please go check that one out and enjoy, guys. It's going to be a chaotic slate, but it's fun. There's joy in the chaos, right, Eric? That's our show every time. Always joy in the chaos.
Joy in the chaos. I just wish I could have saw Puppet Lindquist for 2 seconds. My wife is going to be upset, but that's okay. Jordan Klein, you're the absolute best in all the land. Go ahead, Spags. Do it on the way out. Just one time for the old Gipper.
Oh, hey, everybody. I wasn't ready to do this. My pants are still down, but excited for live before lock. Fantasy tips, Matt. I got a fantasy tip for you right here, Eric. See you guys. Bye-bye.
Craig and Matt Belman coming up next. Have fun, everybody. Don't touch that dial.
What is happening, everyone? Welcome to a Live Before Lock show. I mean, we just don't have time to dilly-dally today. We are getting players ruled out left and right. There are 15 games today, but only 14 on the FanDuel and DraftKings slate. So that is at least going to give us that's one less game we have to worry about. Doesn't matter a whole ton in the grand scheme of things because this is just going to be non-stop in terms of news. And I mean, already since the deep dive has ended, we've had two key players, at least as far as this slate is pertained, have already been ruled out. So guys, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are going to be bringing you guys a lot of information really just as quickly as we can. It's probably going to be adjusting quickly as we're on the show as well. In advance, shout out to the data team who have the near impossible task, Matt, of having to update for every single piece of news that comes across today. And the two most recent pieces of news are big ones, like I mentioned before. Moussa Diabate, he is out with the eye issue that he's been dealing with. Does this mean Nurkic starts? We'll find out shortly. Tyrese Maxey, he is out. So you're looking at a shorthanded Philadelphia 76ers team that already has basically been shorthanded for the entire season. And that Maxey injury kind of came out of nowhere. We found out like an hour ago or something, he was downgraded to questionable. And then, of course, no Joel Embiid because it's tail end of a back-to-back. So now I've got the 76ers value here. Let's start getting to it. First, how you doing today, Matt?
Good, man. Better now that I'm here with you talking this crazy slate out. This is as wild as it gets for NBA, and it's not going to get any calmer. For me, just as an example, like I expect Anthony Edwards to be out tonight. And that's just one example of a guy who could be in, could be out, and that changes the entire complexity of the slate. So we got this Maxey news. It is interesting. There's so many games and so many good plays. One piece of news, like Maxey being out on any normal slate would like shake up the entire slate. And I'm not saying it doesn't do things today, but there's just so many places to go. You could see yourself not even getting affected by that if you're playing minimal lineups, I should say.
Jaylen Brown was just ruled out because, of course, so I mean, we didn't have enough players who were ruled out, so it might as well add Jaylen Brown to the mix. Here's how I view this show going. There's probably going to be nonstop news, wire to wire. We'll just be reacting to all these pieces of news as they come. And then as projections get updated, we'll put them up on the screen for you guys so we can look at what our data team is saying about all these new situations that are constantly going to be arising over the course of the night. And we got a super chat from SC. He says, Godspeed to the data team. LMAO. This is the day you become legends. We appreciate you. Yeah, no easy task for today. I see we did just get a projections update, which, I mean, the Jaylen Brown news just broke. So I assume that isn't going to be taking Jaylen Brown into account. Clint Capella, he's been listed as inactive, and that's something that's going to have to be updated for. But let's see, is Maxey? Okay, Maxey is out now, and I assume Diabate as well. Okay, I'll start with the Tyrese Maxey one here, Matt, because obviously this is a really, really big piece of news to the slate with Joel Embiid already being out. If you would mind, Jordan, can you put the Philadelphia 76ers projections on screen so we can look at the player projections? But first thought here, Matt, this is the tail end of a back-to-back for the 76ers. Team is absolute dog shit. Who is it that is standing out the most to you from Philly? Because looking at first glance, I'm kind of surprised. Paul George, we don't have projected all that well, 38 fantasy points at $7,500. But what are the priorities for you from this team with no Maxey, no Embiid?
Only two guys I'm even thinking about. I'm playing one lineup. I'm playing one big lineup in that big Millie maker. Mm-hmm. Even with Maxey out, only two guys I'm even considering. Jared Butler, 3,100. He's going to be in play now. He is the top guy in the boom bust tool by a good amount. And Quentin Grimes. Grimes is more of a product of his small forward eligibility. He's got a nice price tag. I'm worried about Butler, though, because I think he could be really, really popular. And as I said earlier, I think more news is going to come out. And it's still Jared Butler on a bad 76ers team. So while he looks really good from a value perspective, I'm interested to see how chalky he gets. How about you?
Yeah, so I also want to see the starting lineup because just based on what the rotations have been lately, I think Jared Butler is going to start for them at point guard. And if that's the case, him starting at point guard against the Nets at $3,100, we've got him projected right now for 27 fantasy points, and we don't even have him projected to start right now. Or I should say we don't have him projected to play big minutes because we have him at 25 minutes. So if we got him projected for 27 fantasy points in 25 minutes at nearly min price, and then if he gets thrust in the starting lineup and then we're projecting him for north of 30 minutes, he's going to be a piece of chalk that's really hard to stay away from. So Going to want to see that 76ers lineup. As things go right now, though, Jared Butler looking really good. I agree with you. Quentin Grimes also looks good. I like Paul George a little bit more than our data does. The 38 fantasy point projection. I'm willing to take shots on him where if I assume that if he just runs stuff through the Sims with his current price point and projection, he just isn't going to really show up in lineups. But let's go and look at some of the on-off court numbers here, Matt, to see for the season, because maybe he's just been a crap fantasy producer in all situations this year, Paul George. But my inclination here is that he's going to have to take on a pretty big role for this team. But like I said, if I look up his on-off court numbers without Embiid and Max this year and they just suck, well, then that kind of is what the data is. But Paul George, for you, is he somebody who, I know you said you're only playing one lineup today. How many lineups would you have to be playing for you to start wanting to take shots on Paul George?
That's a good question. 50. I don't think he looks that good because of the price tag, the early-ish lock. Brooklyn's a slow team. Like, it's not a bad matchup because Brooklyn's not good, but it's not like a pace-up spot or anything. So 50 lineups is when I'd start getting to him, I think.
Okay. Let's see. I'm pulling up some of the data here, and we have Paul George this year. Per 36 minutes, he's scoring 44 fantasy points per 36 minutes, so well over a fantasy point per minute. His usage rate this year, it is at, let's see. Yeah, he sees a 7.2% usage increase with Paul George and Tyrese Maxey off the court, with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey off the court. I'm going to be boosting the projection of Paul George in our Sims to make sure he shows up in more of our lineups. Okay. This is what it comes out as, because just looking at some of the on-off court numbers, he looks to me like somebody who I should be expecting to score well over 40 fantasy points.
That's fair. I guess for me, like, there are other guys priced around him that I like more, that I think are better plays that are a little bit cheaper that aren't going to be his own. We'll get to them, but your point's well taken, and he's not going to be popular. There are just so many good plays on this slate. And as the tool is just updated, he is coming in with nice leverage, only 3%, 3.5% ownership, 6.5% chance of being optimal. That sounds right to me. So it makes sense to want to get over the field there.
Yeah, especially I don't think he's actually only going to be 3% owned. I think that is going to come up, but that's the initial ownership projection there. And if that is the mark and I'm boosting his projection in the Sims, I'll probably end up with, at the very least, a good amount overweight to the field on Paul George. I don't know exactly what that number is going to be. Going to have to update everything, but my initial thoughts probably around 20-ish% of Paul George or something along those lines. Let's go ahead and look at the Charlotte Hornets next. And then by the time we look at Charlotte, there's probably going to be an ownership update that we could circle back to and see what the overall implications are. But here's what's of most interest to me, Matt. We have the situation here with Charlotte where Moussa Diabate is now out. The Mark Williams situation, here's all that matters for our intents and purposes. He's not playing today. What the hell happens in the future with Mark Williams? Who knows at this point? But with both of them out, there are only two centers who are available for Charlotte. And they're also going up against a very big Orlando Magic team. You've got Yusuf Nurkic and you've got Taj Gibson available. I assume there's going to be some sort of split of the center minutes. Maybe the Hornets go small at some points, like maybe Salon plays some center minutes or something like that. But the reality is this is a difficult team in the Orlando Magic to play small against. So I think they're going to kind of have to rely somewhat on Yusuf Nurkic, not to play massive minutes, but I feel pretty good about him playing mid-20s minutes. I still think Taj Gibson gets the start. But even though Taj Gibson starts, like we saw this situation with Diabate where Gibson would start, Diabate would come off the bench and play more minutes than Taj Gibson. I think that's what this scenario is going to end up being. Oh, by the way, Lonzo Ball also rolled out today. Good. Maybe they could lose by more points than they lost by yesterday. So Nurkic is a very good fantasy producer. He's a better fantasy producer than Diabate. If we get mid-20s minutes out of Nurkic, you're looking at close to 30 fantasy points. I guess the question that we have to ask here, though, is what's your level of confidence in the playing time of Nurkic, considering he was a healthy DNP in his first game with the team?
I mean, I don't know, because on one hand, it's not high because it's Nurkic, and as you just said, he was a healthy DNP. On the other hand, they don't have Diabate today, and it's a big Orlando team, and Nurkic is on your roster, so like you're gonna play him a little bit. If there was a time to play him, it'd be tonight. I'm torn here. Early lock uses up obviously a vital center spot. He's not dirt cheap anymore. He's 4,500, which he could obviously like. If you told me he played 30 minutes here, like he could 10x 4,500. But if he only plays 18 minutes, you're probably SOL, and it's a tough one, man, because there are other really good plays on this slate. It's hard to eat up that roster spot. I'm inclined to not play him in one lineup. Um, but certainly someone, at least as of now, with the ownership at 1.28, I'd want to be way over the field there in multi-field stuff.
We just got some more injury news here. Mike Conley, he's been ruled out again, although this isn't going to change too much. He's been out for a little bit here. And they got Anthony Edwards. He will play with a hip injury. That's not massively surprising to me. This is just going off memory here, but it feels like at least once per month, Anthony Edwards is questionable with a hip injury, and he almost always ends up playing through it. He also seems to fall on his hip a lot during games, goes to the locker room, looks like he's crippled, and he ends up coming back. So Anthony Edwards, he's going to be out there. I know he's missed sometimes every once in a while, but for the most part, he's been really durable. When he's questionable, you could expect him in more often than not. One thing I'm looking up right now, because I'm interested to see, is how many center minutes Salon has played this year, to see if he's somebody who the Hornets have really liked to go to much at center. And here we have it. He's played 16% of his minutes at center so far this year, Matt. So some, but not an overwhelming amount. So maybe you could get like 4 to 6 minutes for him at center, which then you're looking at like 18 minutes for Taj Gibson and the other 24 to 26 minutes, something along those lines to go to Yusuf Nurkic. That's what I think is like a reasonable breakdown. And that seems to be about what we have in our projections. 23 and a half minutes to Nurkic. We've got 20 minutes to Taj Gibson. Then I guess the rest of those center minutes going to Salon. So I think I want to be a little bit on Nurkic for today for terms, just because there's such an apparent upside. Well, the downside is there too. There's really obvious upside to Yusuf Nurkic as well. Does Diabate being out matter to anybody else for you from the Hornets?
Not really. Here's one for you, though, because I think you have to think about in the context of the slate, like 1v1s like this. If Claxton is out, do you like Nurkic more or Day'Ron Sharpe? At least for someone like me who's playing minimal lineups. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. So.
Or Klingon. Throw Klingon in there.
Yeah. One thing that would definitely matter, too, is what the starting lineups are. It's kind of like a
Sure.
TBD. If Sharpe starts, then it's him over all the other guys. But there's also been a lot of times where we've seen this time and time again. How many times does Day'Ron Sharpe look like a great value option, and then he just doesn't start and he just doesn't see extended minutes? So once again, if Claxton's out, Sharpe is going to look better. But how much I prioritize him is going to depend on if he starts or not.
I couldn't agree more there. Totally with you. And it's weird, too, because it's not like sometimes in blowouts or if Claxton gets hurt in the middle of a game, he'll play 30-plus minutes. But it seems like the times Claxton is out and he's not starting, you're right. He's like a bust off the bench.
Let's start getting to some of these super chats here. And then also, if you guys are a Stokastic sub and you have a question for us, hit me up in the Discord channel. I'll always be looking out for those questions. Having any Stokastic sub, it comes with access to our Discord channel. It comes with the package. And if you guys want to know the easiest way to sign up for Stokastic, link down below in the YouTube description box. You can sign up for any package. We have our link join offer, which you guys should be taking advantage of that. You got totally free access to a free month for each one of our affiliate partners you guys sign up for. So if you want to sign up for 3 partners, and even if you're in a state that doesn't have legalized sports betting, we got sites like Underdog on there. We've got sites like other pick'em sites. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head all the different ones. Better, Sleeper. So if you guys are in a pick'em state, you could sign up for any of those. And of course, if you're in a sports betting state, Bet365, Caesars, BetMGM. Take advantage of these offers. Get yourself 1 free month of core access for each one of our partners that you guys sign up for. But let's start getting to some of the super chats here. Charles Moran says he has no time, and this slate is ridiculous. He just needs 1 top value play as of now on FanDuel and DraftKings by position. All right, let's delegate this a little bit, Matt. We'll go back and forth. You give out your favorite value play on DraftKings at each position. I'll do it for FanDuel, and we'll go back and forth, starting at point guard. All right, so point guard over on FanDuel. Pretty hard for me to not say Jared Butler at 7,300.
Same at 3K.
At shooting guard over on FanDuel. Boy, a couple of good options to go with here as well. Stuck between a couple of guys. I'll say Ryan Rollins. Hard to know exactly what the starting lineup's going to be, but at the very least, he's going to play extended minutes. Also, potential for him to start in the absence of Dame. But Ryan Rollins at shooting guard for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna say KPJ, but man, that ownership is pretty crazy on DK now. But still, KPJ 3,500 shooting guard eligibility. If he starts, he's a lock, close to it. If he doesn't, he's still a really good play with upside at 3,500. So I'll stick with him.
Small forward, I'm going to go with Quentin Grimes.
Small forward is pretty ugly compared to the other positions today. I like the Grimes call. I'll go Kyle Kuzma because he's affordable still on DK.
Yeah, Kyle Kuzma is definitely a consideration for me on FanDuel as well at power forward, but just because you just gave him out on DraftKings, I'll go with Yabusele at power forward. A lot of really good value options on the slate. Yabu, one of the top ones. That'll be my power forward answer for FanDuel. Yourself for DraftKings.
I mean, it's got to be Bol, who looks like one of the top plays of the year so far.
I'm going to go with Bol over on FanDuel. He's only $4,900. Also, Bol, who looks really good on both sites. But on FanDuel, where you're getting the extra bonus for the defensive stats, I mean, you just have ridiculous upside potentially for Bol. Based on the comments we got from Budenholzer last night, it seems pretty likely Bol is going to stick in the starting lineup. So we'll see how long it takes him to play himself out of the starting lineup, but played well last night, especially from a fantasy standpoint. Bol at center.
For me at center, I'm going to go a little pivot and say Bobby Portis. I like him a lot here. And since Bol is the obvious power forward, I'm going to go Portis at center.
Shout out to Chris Williams, who gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. Chris, we appreciate you for supporting the channel as per usual. And then we've also got a super chat here from Orion. This is a FanDuel 3v3 question, and I have a very obvious answer for me at first glance. Like, I don't even think, I'm just going to tell you the names, Matt, and you're going to know which side you prefer. One side, he has Rob Dillingham. He's got Max Christie and Bridges. I don't even know whether it's
not that side.
Bridges. It's
not that side.
Matter. The other side is Jared Butler, Paul George, and Kyle Kuzma.
It's obviously the second one. I mean, you're probably getting 30 points in projection on the second one. The first one might have been more interesting if Ant was out, but with Ant and Dillingham is non-useful on this slate.
I agree with that entirely. Now let's go into Discord and see what questions we have coming in from there. And then we'll look at some of the updated ownership projections after we answer these questions. And here we go. Coach DFS says cash plays for DK. And then he also wants to know, all right, he did DM me this. He wanted to know if I could answer this question for him. And I said that, hey, if people ask me questions, I have to answer. I'm obligated. So I will do this first. And actually, this is going to feed into the second part. We wanted to look at the chalk anyway. But Coach DFS wants to know cash plays for DraftKings. Boy, a lot of directions we could go here, Matt. Who are the players that we think are most important for DraftKings cash games, though? Must-haves.
I kind of think the guys we just talked about as far as the best value plays, but to even limit that even or to make that group even smaller, I think Butler, Bol, and man, with the ownership, I think Butler and Bol are 2 absolute locks. Then based on ownership, I think Kevin Porter Jr. as of right now is too. But a lot of things can change on this slate. Bol and Butler being the 2 highest owned and the 2 top cash plays will not change.
Kevin Porter Jr., another one, considering his ownership. You've got him 58% owned. We got Bol at 60% ownership, Butler 54%. So all 3 of those guys, definitely want to be having them in cash games. My favorite pay-up option now that Jaylen Brown's out, I'm going to go with Jason Tatum going up against the Spurs. Some of the blowout risk mitigated to an extent with Jaylen Brown out. It's always a concern, but as of the way things stand right now, I think points per dollar, Jason Tatum is the best pay-up value. So I'm going to give him as a pay-up option for a cash game. So Tatum, Jared Butler, Kevin Porter Jr., Bol as the cash game locks. And then Coach DFS wants to know who is the Diddy play of the day, somebody who is bad chalk that we want to run away from. All right. There isn't here's what's hard about slates that have this many games. There's only 3 players that are super popular. And I can't tell you to get away from Bol, Kevin Porter Jr., or Jared Butler.
I agree with you, but out of those 3, I think that KPJ is clearly the worst chalk as of right now. Like, if we know he's starting, that's different, but he's only played in 1 game for Milwaukee, and he played like 10 minutes. Now Dame's out here, but I think that Butler and Bol on paper just look like better plays. But I'm with you. Like, that's only if I had to answer one of those three. And those three plays all look really good. There's a reason they're getting ownership. After that, to your point, there just isn't anyone that's getting a ton of love. I'm not even sure how I'd answer it other than I think Kevin Porter Jr. is the answer. You also look at like the boom bust tool. He's by far the most negatively leveraged player on the slate, like by leaps and bounds as of right now. So take that for what it's worth, I guess.
Yeah, I just can't advocate for fading any of those three value options. If we move down a little bit in the ownership projections, Thomas Bryant's pretty popular, 23% owned. Like, I don't think that there's a guarantee that Thomas Bryant has to play big minutes for the Pacers. I mean, we're not that far removed. What was it? 3 games ago, he was uber chalk when he got thrust into the starting lineup at nearly min price and just was okay. He started the game really poorly, kind of rallied late to be serviceable, but I don't think there's a guarantee that Thomas Bryant has to play big minutes just because he did last game. So I'd say he's kind of a flimsy piece of chalk at 23% ownership, and his price point has gone up to 5K. On top of that as well, it's center where there's a lot of viable options. So I'll say Thomas Bryant. I think he's a little bit overowned.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Have here Einstein.
He was the other guy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Bryant was the other guy I was going to say. So good call out. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's hard because there's really only 3 chalk pieces, like I was saying, and I'm not going to tell anybody to fade any of them. Einstein wants to know, how do we view Fox as a GPP option? De'Aaron Fox, any interest in him at $8,100 going up against the Boston Celtics, Matt?
He'd be in my player pool if I were multi-entering, but no chance I get to him in one lineup personally.
Yeah, there's a couple things going against him. First off, the matchup is really poor. His role with the Spurs, I think, is just not going to be as conducive for fantasy value as it was with the Kings. They're not going to play the exact same pace with the Spurs. And then on top of it as well, you've got him sharing the backcourt with Chris Paul. That's somebody who probably is going to siphon away some of his assists. Whatever, if you had him in a lineup, it's okay. But I don't want to be prioritizing De'Aaron Fox going up against the Boston Celtics. The Black Mamba wants us to rank cheap centers. All right. Thomas Bryant, Yusuf Nurkic, and Donovan Kling. Okay. I didn't realize the Sharp there too. Bryant, Nurkic, Klingon, Sharp, and we're assuming all of them start in this scenario.
It's a great question. One of the top questions on the slate. For me, if they all start, I'm going to go with, if Nurk starts, I feel like he's got to be number one. Nurk, Sharp, Bryant, Klingon, but there's not a huge gap between 1 and 4 for me.
The one thing that's kind of, there's so many like what if sort of scenarios. So even like Day'Ron Sharp, it's not only do you need Nick Claxton out and you need him to start. Like you need multiple things to go well. You need, Nurkic to end up being in the starting lineup there, assuming. By the way, we just got the most bogus starting lineup for the Hornets as well that we're going to have to touch on. Elfrid Payton starting at point guard. I don't even know what his price point is.
He's 3K.
All right. Well, there we go. By the way, he wasn't even in our projections before this. And now he's 3K. Well, the price point isn't going to change. Him being out of our projections, that is going to change. What is he over on FanDuel?
I'm really salty at him right now because there was on Super Bowl Sunday, there was a 3-game afternoon slate and I played it. And I had the nut lineup. I played in like the 100-man contest, but I changed it last minute because Elf was popping in the projections. And because of that change, I finished in 3rd instead of 1st. So he's definitely on my bad side. But man, starting at 3K, I think he looks better than Butler.
This is another value option that we're not going to be able to get away from. You got to
100%. You're right.
It's 3K. So once again, going back to the question before about chalk options to avoid, Elfrid Payton's about to show up as chalk. I'm not going to avoid Elfrid Payton starting at point guard at min price. A little bit more expensive, $4,300 on FanDuel. Don't care. He's going to look really good there as well. So this is another piece of chalk that's going to be added to the mix. By the way, also should add, I kind of got stuck at Elfrid Payton. Nurkic is starting at center, by the way, too. I didn't even get to that part. I just saw Elfrid Payton as the starting point guard. I was like, what the hell is going on here? I didn't look at the other 4 players. So Elfrid Payton, Nick Smith Jr., you got Green, Bridges, Nurkic. Nurkic also looks really, really strong tonight now that he's confirmed as the starter.
Yeah, this is becoming a tricky slate now. I mean, we knew this was going to happen, but like now there are like 5 pieces of chalk that look really hard to get away from. And in like a contest like I'm playing in tonight, I don't necessarily want to play like a 3v3, which is why like, man, I don't know who to even think about getting away from though. It's a tough slate.
Oh my God. I mean, the injury news, like I see people in the chat saying, hey, go look at this piece of injury news. Go look at this. It's all coming out. I'm trying to get to everything here, but it's a lot happening at once. The Heat news isn't all that pressing right now. It's Duncan Robinson ruled out, Terry Rozier ruled out, and then Tyler Hero is a game time decision. Like Rozier and Robinson being out, that's not going to move the needle as much as some of these other pieces of news that we've got right here. Ty Jerome, also, he's been ruled out. So let's go and look at what are people saying in chat? Who are they saying? Was Hero ruled? I saw Hero as a game time.
No, yeah, he's a game time decision. Duncan Robinson and Rozier are out. Hero's a game time decision. The thing that's upsetting me about this slate now is I really was looking forward to just backloading my lineups and waiting for the news, but you can't do that anymore with the Hornets starting lineup.
Per Ira Winderman, we have Tyler Hero and Jaime Jaquez Jr. are warming up as they try to work through the same issue. They're dealing with some sort of stomach bug. And then the Heat just tweeted out that Tyler Hero will warm up with the intent to play. It seems to me like Tyler Hero is playing. Game time decision officially listed as questionable. It seems to me he's more likely to play than sit, though.
Agreed.
So, yeah. Apparently there was some confusion with what the status of Hero was, but that's why I didn't immediately touch on Hero being out, because it seemed that I didn't see him being ruled out there anywhere. By the way, starting lineup for the Wizards. We got Alex Sarr back starting at center. It seemed he was going to play today, but I wasn't exactly sure whether he was going to start or not, if it was going to be Rashawn Holmes in the starting lineup, but good to know that we've got Sarr back in the starting unit there. For your Cleveland Cavaliers, I know they've got a lot more depth now. Is Ty Jerome being out, is that going to open up anybody, or just too much value on the slate?
There's just too much. I mean, on a normal slate maybe, but there's just too much. I mean, you could take deep shots on like a Craig Porter Jr. now because he's going to be in the rotation, and there's blowout run for sure in play here. But I mean, are you playing Craig Porter over like Jared Butler or Alf Payton? It's really hard to do so.
Ooh, we got a super chat that is one of these here directed at you. So that'll be interesting. We've got actually, I'll just read, it's a little out of order, but I'll read this one first just because you had talked about coming in third in that GPP. Well, Ethan King left us a super chat to say, Matt, I took down that tournament on Sunday. Sorry, bro.
I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. Honestly, I had Simpson and Bridges in my lineup. Bridges hit 2 threes late, and he was like really popular. The two guys ahead of me, or I think the two guys ahead of me had him. I would have taken it down, but honestly, no, all kidding aside, congrats.
All right. I have to start rerunning some sims here. I see we've got people asking questions about like favorite players at each position. So I will circle back to that. I just want to make sure that I get some sims runs, that I have an accurate answer for everybody. Jorge, our friend Jorge Giacomi, wants to know favorite spend up for the DraftKings Millie and favorite value play for the DraftKings Millie, Matt. Boy, picking out one favorite value play is a difficult task today.
For sure. But for me, like, and maybe I'm a sucker, it's Elf. Going back to Orlando, like, we know what Elf can do from a fantasy perspective. Starting here, it's Elf for me. Over all the other guys, my favorite spend up has got to be Jokic. Always Jokic, and there's enough value now to make it so you can easily get to him. That said, there's also really good center value, so it's definitely a slate where you're going to need to nail pretty much everything like to the max.
Here's a fun thing to think about. 14 games, infinity value, tons of pay up options. In the main contest, so not the Millie, the main contest though, it has more entries.
Sure.
How many fantasy points does first place score tonight?
It's tough because like if you get like Bobo and Butler like just absolutely sucking, it'll bring it down. But presuming those guys are like good, not even like great, it's got to be in like the 430 range, somewhere like that. I mean, there's going to be random plays. I don't know, like 420. There's going to be random plays that just go. I mean, there's so many games. It's just naturally that some guys are just going to have monster scores.
I'm guessing 410. I would be fairly surprised if it's under 400.
I'm with you, especially if Bull and Butler and
And Peyton.
KPJ aren't like all. Yeah. Do you think You think though Peyton's going to be as popular? Oh, why wouldn't he be?
Yeah, but let's see when our projections are all updated here. I have this sim run that'll be done in like 5 seconds, and then we'll go back to the projections page. Jordan, is that updated now? The player projections for the Hornets? Okay, so not quite yet. Not quite yet. We'll circle back to that when that's updated. Almost Made wants to know for FanDuel favorite players for each position. All right, so favorite players for each position on FanDuel. So I'm still going to say Jared Butler over Elfrid Payton. That is an assumption of that Jared Butler ends up starting, and we don't. At least I haven't seen that starting lineup yet. Yeah, that hasn't come through. So for right now, I'm going to say Jared Butler at point guard. At shooting guard, Kevin Porter Jr. If you're looking for a lower owned option, actually, I'll just say him at small forward. With all the players that have been in and out at this point, Quentin Grimes only 15% owned on FanDuel. I think that now we've got just this influx of value, and there's still guys who are really good looking that are kind of flying under the radar. So I'll go Quentin Grimes at small forward. At power forward, let's see. I'll go with Jason Tatum here as a spend up option. Not crazy ownership on him. 24%, no Jaylen Brown. That's going to really benefit him. At center, pretty easy to say Bol, but also go with Nurkic as a secondary center option there. Thank you for the super chat, Almost Made. Coley Poston says Elf Revenge, lock it in. It doesn't really matter which revenge, not revenge, but it does matter, especially on DraftKings. He's starting at point guard. There's no Lonzo Ball. The team is shorthanded. He's the flatten in. You know, if the revenge factor matters to you, cool. There's many reasons to get to Elfrid Payton today. Projections are going to be the foremost reason for me to want to get to him. And now we've got Realist EDM says, for payups at point guard on FanDuel, thoughts on Trae Young playing at Madison Square Garden? Not anything I really care about. Here's what I think about point guard payups on FanDuel. There's so much value at the point guard position. We have Jared Butler. We have Kevin Porter Jr. We now also have Elfrid Payton added to the mix. If I'm paying up for anybody, it's probably going to be Luka for me. I don't know exactly what his role is going to look like today. He was upgraded to probably played somewhat limited minutes in his first game with the Lakers, but he's only 10K on FanDuel, and there's a chance he plays full minutes today in a good matchup. So if I have to pay up for somebody, it's going to be Luka. But now with that said, my preference is going to be to go cheap at point guard on FanDuel. Jared Butler, Kevin Porter Jr., Elfrid Payton. These are clearly the top points per dollar options. I prefer to spend up at other positions than point guard. Do you see it any differently for FanDuel, Matt?
No, I don't. I think you got it. You hit the nail right on the head.
Dustin Stringer also asked top plays at each position on FanDuel. We just covered that one. We've got Jorge says, forgot the super chat. He got sixth in the 777 yesterday, thanks to the late swap in Bol. Yeah, I wish I was overweight to Bol yesterday. I wish I had more flexibility to swap on to more of him, but I mean, who could have foreseen that he was going to be starting yesterday? But shout out to Jorge for getting on Bol. That was basically for me, like looking at the post contest sims. Lineups where I got to Bol looked fantastic. I had other lineups that looked okay, but it was very clear the strongest lineups, courtesy of the late swap, is somebody like Bol yesterday. We've got Sean Jeezy says, it feels like Evan Mobley and Domantas Sabonis are under-owned for the Millie or similar contests. Thoughts, guys? All right. If you're trying to get really different in the Millie tonight, and I know that Sean specifically asked us about Evan Mobley and Domantas Sabonis. Is there a particular different contrarian pay-up option that you like more than other ones for that smaller field, high-stakes contest?
Just in terms of like game theory in general, I think that is an interesting way to play a slate like this, where we've got value that just really stands out. You only need one guy that's really, really different to separate yourself from the field. And yeah, there are plenty of guys to choose from on a slate like this. For me, and this is nothing more than like a gut call, because I think a lot of all of the unowned stars are unowned for a reason, whether it be bad matchup, bad price tag, both. For me, it's Wemby. Like, he's not going to get any ownership. We know his upside is about as high as anyone in basketball outside of Jokic and maybe Luka, Giannis too. Last game before the All-Star break for San Antonio, obviously a little bit of an easier matchup for the Spurs in general. No Jaylen Brown. And we've seen Wemby like go nuts on big stages like this before. So for me, it's Wemby, but that doesn't mean I'm playing him.
I'm going to go with the guy I brought up before, Paul George. Like Paul George, based on how he's projecting right now, is not going to be getting very much ownership, it seems, anywhere. Let's see. What is our updated ownership now on Paul George? Updated ownership. We have Paul George. Page loading. We just had an ownership update from a minute ago. All right. So we now have Paul George projected for, 6% ownership now that we've run some updates. And that's for large field stuff. He's probably going to be even lower owned in some of the small field. That's how I like to get different. I mean, you got no Tyrese Maxey. You got no Joel Embiid. I know that Paul George has had a massively disappointing season, but he's got all the opportunity. If he can't come through in this, and his price point isn't even all that high. Last year, this is a guy who was around 9K for most of the season. So Paul George is $7,500. I think there's a real upside there, lower ownership. Cowboy Smith X says Bol Bol was the late night Engelman Nightmare contrarian play of the day. Who is the late night contrarian play of the night today? So, I mean, keep in mind too, Bol Bol, once we found out he was starting, he was very apparently a top play on the slate. It was just a matter of, do you have the flexibility to be able to swap to him? For today, who is the contrarian play who I think could make people close their computer for the night because they don't have exposure to him? I kind of want to harp back on Paul George, who's playing early and I think has massive opportunity. How about for you, Matt? Who's somebody who the field isn't playing that's in an early game that you think could maybe cause people to close their computer and go, this isn't worth looking at anymore. I'm dead.
So it has to be from an early game.
Presumably, it's somebody who opens up who starts really well that people aren't playing and like, I'm dead now because I don't have him.
I'm gonna go with it's a tough question because I'm not playing these guys, but I'm gonna go with Jordan Poole. Not getting much ownership finally, clearly has upside, and he's just a byproduct of the slate why he's not getting love.
Let's see if we have some updated projections for tonight on the Hornets. All right, what do we have for Charlotte?
Our tools are lower on Nurkic than I thought they would be.
I'm curious. I haven't been able to look. All right, we have Elfrid Payton in for 22 fantasy points. We've got Nurkic in for 23.4. Yeah, we only got him projected for 21 minutes. It is worth noting we have KJ Simpson in our projections right now. I'm not sure if he's active or not, though. So that could also kind of swing things here. But here's what we do with center minutes. We gave 21 to Nurkic. We gave 17 to Taj Gibson. So that accounts for 38 center minutes. And then I guess we've got the other 10 center minutes, some of it going to Salon, I assume, and then maybe some center minutes as well to Bridges. I want to be higher on Payton and Nurkic than our projections are.
I get that. I'm definitely higher on Payton. The thing is, it's just really tough with Nurkic because they lock early and there's so much news we're still waiting on that could come out, even stuff we don't know about. It's tricky. I couldn't follow anyone for just locking Nurkic in. I couldn't follow anyone for just saying, I'm going to wait because there's going to be at least plays that are close to him. And there could be plays that are a lot better than him or better than him. I don't know about a lot better, but better.
Yeah. And then, related tonight, Matt's going to be joining me in playback. We've got Josh night off for him. It is his 50th birthday. So if you guys have not messaged Josh, make sure to wish him a happy 50th birthday. He'll be thrilled to see those messages. Josh out for today and tomorrow. So Matt's going to be joining me in playback, and we're waiting on all kinds of news, all kinds of starting lineups. It's going to be a really valuable show to make sure your guys' lineups are as updated as possible. Aaron Gordon's still questionable. We got Nick Claxton questionable. OG Anunoby is still questionable. Jeremy Grant is still questionable. Michael Porter Jr. is questionable. PJ Washington is questionable. John Moran is questionable. Tyler Hero is officially questionable, trending towards playing. Zion Williamson is questionable. I don't think he's going to play, though. Şengün is still questionable. And then, like I mentioned at the top, lots of starting lineups as well that we're still waiting on for here. So let's see what ends up happening with all of that news. And also, join Matt and I over in playback in 13 minutes. When this slate does lock. One other thing I want to let you guys know is NBA All-Star break tomorrow is going to be our last full NBA slate for about a week, but we are going to be having the Daytona 500 this weekend. So because of that, we've got a sale going on here. 50% off any of our NASCAR packages with the promo code PITSTOP. So if you guys are looking to scratch the itch and get in some DFS lineups over the course of the weekend, this is going to be the biggest contest going on in the DFS streets. We've got Daytona covered. We've got our NASCAR products. We got Sims for NASCAR. 50% off any NASCAR package you want to sign up for. Link down below in the YouTube description box with that promo code PITSTOP. Let's see what else we have for super chats. We've got a Weatherman7 says, do we think that KD plays big minutes today? Matt, do you think we get big minutes out of Kevin Durant tonight?
I'm worried here. He looks really good in the tools, and I know he's gaining some steam. He played 45 minutes or whatever last night. I'm worried here. I'm worried about Phoenix getting blown out. I'm worried about them not playing him huge minutes anyways. Why would they? They're toast. I mean, they're obviously still going to go for it as a team, but why are you going to extend Durant here when he's just coming back from injury, All-Star break coming up? I personally don't think they're going to play big minutes here, and that's without even including the blowout. And then you put that on top. I'm off KD tonight. That could be to my detriment, though.
Yeah, I still want to be getting to KD. This is a team in the Suns that's in a pretty precarious situation. They are on the outside looking in of the playoff picture right now. Like, they need to win games. They don't have Bradley Beal. They don't have Devin Booker today. I think we see a pretty big role from KD.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. And I think when you say a big role, I totally agree. When he's on the court, I know that the numbers are like 1.7 DraftKings points per minute without Booker and Beal. I think that he's going to, if he doesn't maintain that, it's going to be close to it. But is he going to play 40 minutes here or is he going to play 33? I more lean to the 33. I get your point about the win, but I mean, they're probably not winning this game regardless.
Yeah, could very well end up being the case. Let's see what else we have for super chats. We've got Sam Van Dam wants to know the exotic play of the night. No time to run the animation, but who's your favorite exotic tonight?
It is perfect timing. I mean, now I'm going to play this guy because I was about to ask you about him. He's white. I mean, it came at the perfect time. I like this guy a lot, and he's going to get no love because of the center position, price tag, etc. Walker Kessler, 6,800 against the Lakers. We know the Lakers don't have any real big men right now. The Jazz guys are playing big minutes. They've cut their rotation down to like 8 guys. Past 4 games for Kessler, 34, 38, 36, and 34 minutes. That's with a blowout in there. He's not going to get any love, and I'm not saying he should be popular, but he's my exotic play of the night. Thoughts, and who's yours?
Yeah, so I don't have any issue with that. I am going to go with Nikola Jokic. I mean, we got a low-owned Jokic on a slate that has a ton of value, and most of that, a lot of times when we have good value, Matt, where does it come? It comes in the front court usually. That's not today. The best value is coming in the back court. So I mean, there is Bol, but we could play 2 centers, so maybe I should amend that a little bit. But overall, we have a lot more guard value options than we have center value options. Bol is one of the better value options on the slate, but we've still got Peyton, we've got Jared Butler, we've got Kevin Porter Jr. So we've got all this value in the backcourt. It just kind of makes sense to me to pay up for a lower-owned Jokic. So that is going to be my exotic play of the night. Let's see what we have for our next question. It is Tito Wilson wants to know no nuke of the night or lotion play. It's been hard because the bits are all fun, well and good. I get it. It's good content, but we don't normally have 14-game slates where there's constantly news. We got just Şengün. He's now a game-time decision, although not too much of a change there because he was questionable before. We just have so much stuff that's coming out that, we don't even have the 30 seconds to play some of the graphics package or the animations. But I'll ask you relative to a nuke of the night here, Matt, who's your favorite overall GPP play on the slate?
Number 1 guy, not even close. Actually, basically the same price as Walker Kessler, Bobby Portis. I think he's back in the starting lineup here. Takes on a huge role with no Dame. Give me all the Bobby Portis.
I'm surprised Elfrid Payton isn't popular. We've got everything updated now. We've got a decent projection on. I thought Elfrid Payton was going to be as popular as the other chalk options on the slate. It's not that he's low owned per se, but I thought he was going to be somebody who was Oh, never mind. We just got a projection update. Now he is. I was looking at it before, and he was all right. Nix that. I was looking before where he was pulling like 20% ownership or something like that, but he has ended up being more popular than that. So never mind. All right, but here's one that I am going to say: same player or same team, different player though. Even though we have Nurkic project for 1% ownership.
Yeah, I think it's just the slate. Like, I don't think it'll actually be 1%, but like, he's not going to be chalky because there's a lot of risk there. It starts early, center spot, etc. Yeah, that is very interesting though.
Yeah, I mean, getting the 1% ownership on Nurk. I get it's flimsy because we don't know what his minutes are going to be. We know he's starting though, so he has some floor built in because of that. I don't know. I think that people are weighing the floor more than the ceiling here. 1% on Nurkic, that's an easy guy to be overweight to the field too.
I totally agree. That's a really, really good point. And it's a hard slate not to think that way because there are so many good plays that don't have the low floor that Nurkic does. But to your point, like, and this is why I said earlier when the guy asked us rank our top 4 centers, presuming they're all starting, I put Nurkic first because of that upside. So that's a really good point.
Yeah, let's see what ends up happening with more of those starting lineups in the post lock portion here as well. Coley Pasta wants to know, are you liking Tatum with no Jaylen Brown? Yeah, absolutely. Really, really strong pay up option.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton to like about Tatum here.
Jay wants to know, what Blazers do we like the most today? Boy, let's see when I've got another sim running here. This should be my final one before we get to lock. Any Blazers that you're prioritizing, Matt, or look really strong to you?
No Blazers I'm even playing.
Yeah, like if I have to pick one, the answer is Klingon for me, but there's still so many other centers that I like more than him. I have Klingon in I've got him in 9% of lineups right now, so I'll say him as one. Nobody else for me though. I've got 4% of Denny Avdia. Yeah, Klingon, Avdia is a secondary option, but nothing else for me really that I'd want to add to that. Let's see what we have for our next question. We've got Pat Clay Tomstar. What do we think the Mavs starting lineup is going to be tonight, Matt?
Well, it depends on if PJ Washington's in or not. If he's in, I think he's going to start at center because this is a team you don't really need to start a true center against. We saw Draymond start the other night. It's probably either going to be him or Quentin Post. So I think the starting lineup will be Kyrie, Clay, PJ Washington, Dante Exum, and like Omax or Najee Marshall, one of those guys. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, if Washington's out, they're just so thin in the front court that it's kind of hard to say. They played Prosper a bunch of center minutes the other day because they kind of had to. I mean, like a week ago, this team had way too many centers where half of the best players on the team all played the same position. And now we've got like the inverse problem for this team where they just don't have nearly enough big men to play. So I don't know. I don't have a great answer for you. It's going to be pending some changes there or who ends up getting ruled in or ruled out. So we'll see what ends up happening with the starting lineup there. We've got Madub T. Thoughts on Banton with Scoot out? A little bit too thin for me on this slate.
Yeah, same. I mean, at this point, it's just so many good plays.
JT Mack for the DK Millie Maker. Who are some popular players you would fade? The most popular one that I would want to not play is probably Thomas Bryant.
Yeah, same. We went over that earlier, and I agree with you.
And then M Grizzly wants to know, who are we boosting, and then who are we limiting ownership to in the first games outside of Elf. So I'm not going out of my way to try to limit my exposures to anybody. It's just there's so many good value options that it's hard for me to try to take guys out. But as far as the first game goes, that Hornets game in particular, the most important players to me, Nurkic at super low ownership, Elfrid Payton, in the first locking games on the slate. Who else is important to you, Matt?
Well, we just got news that Claxton's in, so that is a relief. Elf Payton's by far the most important for me. I'm debating a 2v2 now with Tatum. I'll just throw it out here to you. Tatum and Walker Kessler or Kuzma and Cade Cunningham. The Sim Tools likes the second one a lot better.
Honestly, I don't love either combination. I'll say the latter, though.
Fair.
And all right, we're caught up on those questions. We got one final super chat here from Weatherman7. He wants to know Quentin Grimes or Tyus Jones. Ooh, that is Tyus Jones for me.
It's probably Tyus Jones, and he's a later game, which helps. So yeah, I'm with you there.
And I really like Quentin Grimes on this. This is what's really hard is we're getting, I ran my lineups and then I look at it. It's like, oh, I don't have enough of this guy. I don't have enough of this guy. Like, I just want to be able to play everybody. And it's really hard to do that as much as I want for all of these guys. So like, I just ran the Sims. I was like, oh, I don't have as much Elfrid Payton as I want. I have to make some adjustments here to get myself to more Elfrid Payton for the slate. And then I look, it's like, I don't have enough Nurkic either. So I'm trying to run one more Sim with some adjustments here so I get to more of the guys I want to. But ultimately, on a 14-game slate with this much value, more of it coming, that Matt and I are going to be covering in playback here in a second, you just kind of have to make sacrifices somewhere. So I'm curious from your standpoint, who's the value option that you feel like you ended up sacrificing the most that maybe you're not comfortable with not having in your lineup?
That is TBD. I mean, because I think my lineups are going to change as of right now. I'm playing Butler, I'm playing Ball, I'm playing Payton, and I'm playing KPJ. So none of them.
Fair enough. All right. I do not have as much Nurkic as I want, but I've got a minute to go here. So I just got to upload this because the alternative is I'm playing nothing today. And then you lose everything if that happens. So I only have around 10% of Nurkic. I'm not happy with that. But like I said, the alternative is 0% of Nurkic, and I have no live lineups at all for today. So, guys, that hour went extremely quickly. If you've not done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are going to be in playback in a second. I see Wade asking for it in the chat here. Drop that link in there, Jordan, so people know where to find us. Also, guys, don't forget, if you want to sign up for our NASCAR package this weekend, that promo code PITSTOP gets you 50% off. OG Anunoby was just rolled out. We'll cover that over on playback. And then in addition, also, Portfolio EV. We got a 7-day free trial for that. We got our link join offer. So if you guys want to sign up for any of our affiliate partners, 1 free month for each one that you guys sign up for. All right, Matt and I heading on over to playback. We're going to touch on the OG Anunoby news and whatever other 50 piece of news break while we're watching the games on playback. So come join us over there. Jordan dropped the link in. Guys, have a good night. Join us in playback. If you aren't, you're making a mistake. See you over there.